His fate, though, is unclear after he was declared AWOL. America is listening to Fox News.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Do you have heart failure and often hear,
"Those stomach issues ruined your birthday"?
"You're too tired to play catch, Grandpa."
Sweetie, you haven't touched your tools since the carpal tunnel syndrome diagnosis.
If these seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, talk to your cardiologist. Ask about transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare and underdiagnosed disease that gets worse over time. Learn more at connecttoyourheart.com. That's connecttoyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Hi, this is Kennedy Coulter, and DJ Coulter with American Family Insurance is my dad. As I get older, I realize how important my dad's job really is. All those times he had to take a work call when we were at the lake or in the gym, he really cares. He always puts his family first, but his clients are second. As his biggest and most difficult client, I can tell you for a fact he can handle any situation. Go to djcoulter.com and find out for yourself. That's djcoulter.com.
Partly to mostly cloudy for this evening. We'll have southeast winds around 10 to 15 miles per hour, which pick up throughout the overnight hours out of the southeast 10 to 25 miles per hour. It'll be partly to mostly cloudy tonight with lows in the upper 50s. Rounding out in the mid-70s on Thursday, partly cloudy and windy. Southeast winds around 15 to 30 miles an hour. Lighter wind on Friday, but a chance for scattered showers for the first half of the day with highs near 70. From the Flag Skywatch Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Justin Storm.
Who will shine? Who will flop? Tonight, Republican candidates face off at the second presidential debate. Pre-debate coverage begins now on The Flag. Brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation.
All right, here we go. It is round number 2, the second GOP debate, and we have our watch party going here at AM 1100 The Flag Studios. We invite you to stop on in. Steve Hallstrom, he is manning things tonight. Nice to have you here this time, buddy.
Ring that bell for round 2, baby.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, here
Let's
we go.
Get it on.
So you kind of you feeling like out of place because last month you were at the debate. You didn't make it down here this month because we didn't know if Governor Burgum was going to make it.
We didn't. We had to wait till the last minute. I'm glad he did, but yeah, it made it hard to figure out how we're going to get to Southern California in about 25 hours. So we're right here. But yeah, last time I was in Milwaukee, it was about 130 degrees outside, and I had to wear a suit and a tie. It was terrible. So I'm glad to be back here hanging out with you, brother.
Well, we're going to have some fun tonight, as always. Scott Hennen will join us here in a little bit. The debate, of course, starts at 8 o'clock. I know, Steve, you got some great guests lined up. About 7:20, Lance Trover, campaign spokesperson for Doug Burgum. He'll join us. And then I know also Congressman Kelly Armstrong will be joining us.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to Kelly at the last debate after the whole thing was done, and I had a really good visit with him, and he was talking strategy about Doug did this, and I thought that went really well, and this candidate should have done this and that. And I said, okay, buddy, next time we do this, we're having you on our pregame show to talk a little bit about it. But as far as someone who knows North Dakota as well as Kelly does, I'm really interested to hear him talk about Doug. What should his strategy be? What could he do better than he did last time? Does he still have a shot? I think all those things will be good topics to address with Kelly tonight.
I think Doug tonight, granted the first debate, torn Achilles, he was not on medication. He was standing up there, manning it up, and it was a smart move. The last thing you want to do is be on that main stage and be loaded up with painkillers. Yeah, exactly. Stoned out of your mind. Yeah. So he sucked it up. Tonight, let's hope that he jumps. He's got to jump in and really be aggressive tonight.
I think so. And there were times I thought, to be honest, too, Jay, in the last debate that it seemed like he was a little unaware, wasn't ready for that opportunity when it came and couldn't find the right words. And it's really hard to prepare yourself to be on that stage until you're there. And when you get those opportunities, you know they're super precious. You got to make the most of them.
Steve, set the scene at one of these debates. I mean, you were there, ground zero. What is that like? How big is the crowd? What's the feeling in the room?
You know, it's a funny event, Jay, because you and I have both been to Trump rallies and big rock concerts and that kind of thing. A Trump rally is like a rock concert. Yeah. It's like college football comes to politics. Yeah. Everybody's got their face paint on and
they tailgate.
Oh, it's crazy. And it's so much fun. This was a very different event. This was really corporate. It was really straight-laced. There wasn't a whole lot of excitement, to be quite honest with you. Very businesslike. And then when the event started, then there was a little bit of excitement, but still it was very subdued. And there were only about 5,000 people in the arena on that night. And this is kind of an invite-only thing. You can't buy a ticket to get into this. You have to be invited by one of the candidates. And they don't want, the Republican National Committee, they don't want to have 100 people, every square inch in the place either. So It's honestly, there's a lot of energy when the debate begins, but right up until then, it's like everybody's sleeping. Then everybody wakes up, and now it's go time. So it's a very bizarre event to begin with. Not to mention Doug Burgum basically blew out his ankle the night before playing basketball and was dealing with excruciating pain at the time.
I'm guessing his people told him, hey, no gym time before the debate this time around. Just, and I get it, the candidate, that's how you relieve your stress. That's how you get your mind in the right place. And, Doug, 67 years old, a very, very fit, very healthy guy. He is into all that health and fitness. So I thought he, just assumed, hey, I'm going to go do a quick pickup game of basketball, never thinking that would happen. But it can. So anyway, he's back on the stage tonight. We know Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, center stage. He's the lead right now. Of course, former President Trump not on the stage tonight. And it's going to be really interesting because I think you are going to see Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley really go at it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with poll numbers after tonight's debate. Where are we right now with poll numbers, Steve? You got them?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of polls that are out now, and I think you can't really look at a poll that came out 2 months ago because this is a changing picture, although President Trump continues to be the guy who's on top of just about every poll. But Trafalgar Group, I thought, gave a pretty accurate depiction for the most part. And I'll talk about why I think this is really interesting for Doug in a minute. But in pretty much every poll we see, Jay, Donald Trump is somewhere in that 50 to 55 range. Yep. There's a few where he's a little higher, a few that he's a little lower, but generally half the field is on his side. And then Ron DeSantis is somewhere between 14 and 18% in most of the polls. And in this one with Trafalgar that came out, the one that got Doug Burgum in over the weekend, he was at 14.3. And then it's kind of everybody else. And you've got a few of those sort of half contenders, I guess you might say, where you got Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, maybe Chris Christie in that, maybe Tim Scott in that. But what was interesting about the Trafalgar poll is that Ramaswamy came in at 5.9%. So he had about a third of the votes that DeSantis did, and DeSantis had about a third of what Trump did. Not even that. Trump way out in front. But then you had Nikki Haley, who she is, I think, somebody to watch in this. And I know a lot of true conservatives say, well, she's a little more moderate, a little more liberal than I'm comfortable with, but she's a person that will appeal to a lot of people in the middle, and she has a big and strong following with women. But she's at 4.2, so obviously there's some work still to go. And then you've got Mike Pence at 3.8. Doug Burgum and Chris Christie ended up tied in the Trafalgar poll at 3.2. Tim Scott was behind them at 3.0. And I thought as much as Tim Scott had some momentum going into that debate, I think we really saw during that debate who Tim Scott is and why it's going to be really hard for him to gain momentum. He's just a really nice guy. Yeah. But in this, you've got to have a little showman to you. As much as I hate that part of it, Jay, there's just something about it. You've got to either have that kind of that splash and that sizzle, or when you get your name called and it's your turn, you got to deliver something that makes people go, holy smokes, that was great.
And that is what happened the first debate in Milwaukee. And I want to ask you, you were there. I honestly believe that Ramaswamy stole the show for that one. His star was rising. I think he's coming down a little bit, but he was like wow, this guy was on fire. I'll say it again. I think tonight Vivek's going to get in there. He's going to scrap. But I think the two to watch, it is going to be Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. I think those two are going to go after each other hard because these are, take former President Trump out of it. These right now are the two top front runners, and they're going to battle it out.
I do think that's right. I think Vivek is really good in those one-on-one interviews. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's making a speech where he doesn't have to share the stage, but in that debate, I think we saw him take a bit of a hit when it seemed like he just couldn't work with anybody, couldn't get along with anybody. He was really a flamethrower, but in a way that wasn't that was a spirit that would bring everybody along. And so I thought Vivek's showing he was steadily moving forward. I don't think that debate helped him, and I can't say exactly why, but I think people felt like he's a little bit more, a little over the top, a little boastful for somebody that doesn't have the experience. And when Nikki Haley called him out on the foreign policy piece of it and said, you can tell that you've not been a policymaker, it shows, that really, I think, hit hard on him. I don't think a lot of people expect him to be there in the end. I think he's got a really bright future, and I like a lot of what he says and what he does. But are you really ready to turn the country over to someone who is that age, who just hasn't been through much of anything before in the political world, like Donald Trump had at least been through the business world a few times? So I think it is those two, Jay. I think that people are really going to be watching today to see how they handle the situation.
Steve Hallstrom, it's funny how you brought up his age, and that is a real issue on both sides of the aisle, Republican, Democrat. You've got Biden, who's in his 80s. You got Trump in his late 70s. People talk about we got to get some younger blood in there. You have the younger blood with Vivek, but some people feel he's too young. And I don't think so much it's that he's too young. It's like you said, Stephen, that is, he doesn't have that experience when it comes to dealing with foreign countries. President Trump, he did have that technically because of his years as a businessman. He's dealt with these countries. And so he brought that to the table. Right. He had the proof. You don't have that with Vivek. Of course, Haley, she's got the experience. Going to be a great debate tonight. It really is. By the way, you could jump in on the conversation if you want to be part of this. 701-271-1100. You can also email the program. What is the email? I don't know what it is.
For Flag?
Yeah.
studio@flagfamily.com.
Oh, there you go.
Studio@flagfamily.com.
And you can also watch us. By the way, you can watch us. We are on live right now on the Flag's YouTube page, also on Flag's Facebook page, AM 1100 The Flag for both, and also at AM1100theflag.com. Want to welcome all you folks out in Western North Dakota listening at KTGO 1090 and FM 92.7. And, of course, we're out here this part of the state, AM 1100 The Flag and 92.3 FM, and worldwide anywhere on the marble at AM1100theflag.com. What do you want to see tonight or hear tonight, Steve?
Well, I want a good, healthy discussion on the issues. If the moderators do their job the way it should be, according to the way I see it, I want them to say, how do we handle Ukraine? Go. Mm-hmm. How do we handle $33 trillion in debt? Go. I want to hear the candidates talk about how they're going to tackle these issues. I don't want bumper stickers and one-liners tonight. I want policy. Yep. I want you to show us that you have a grasp on the issue and that when it comes to the difficult part of your point, which there's going to be, that's just how it is, how do you bring people along even when you have to tell somebody something they don't want to hear? I don't want to hear about the UFOs, and I don't want to see like drone footage of the next debate scene or whatever. I want good substantive issues. Everybody gets a turn to go first, and then the next question somebody else goes first, so everyone has an equal opportunity. I think the issues of crime, national security, education, the debt, abortion, I think those things are really important. I think the population deserves to know what their candidates think about those issues. That's what I want to hear tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. And there are so many issues, as always. Doesn't matter which presidential race it is. There are always a stack of issues. The difference now, I think, Steve, for the country is these issues, like you said, crime and the economy and abortion. These issues have exploded and become so large that people want answers.
That's
and you're right. I like that. No bumper sticker phrases. This is the problem, and this is how I can fix it. Okay, when we come back after the break, Kellyanne Conway, former advisor to President Trump, she was on Fox News Channel with Bill Hemmer this morning, and we're going to hear what the playbook should be for these 7 candidates tonight from her. That when we come back, your emails, your calls if you want to jump in. The debate starts at 8. It is debate pregame show number 2. AM 1100 to Flag, 92.3 FM. Out in western North Dakota, KTGO 1090, FM 92.7, and anywhere in the world at AM1100theflag.com. More of the pregame debate with myself, Jay Thomas. Also along with me is Steve Hallstrom. Scott Hennen will join us in a bit. And we've got our folks out for the watch party, enjoying some great food from CJ's, I believe, catering.
Casey Joe's Catering.
Catering. There
big
it is.
Thanks
right
to them.
there.
Americans for Prosperity, North Dakota Petroleum Foundation. Big thanks to them tonight.
There you go. More when we come back.
The Republican presidential debate on the flag is brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation.
Schools, roads, and flood protection. These are the important local projects being funded across North Dakota, thanks to our state's oil and natural gas. In fact, North Dakota's oil and natural gas industry pays billions of dollars in taxes every year. It provides big benefits to our counties and communities, addressing local needs and making life better for generations. North Dakota's oil and natural gas, advancing the possibilities.
Hi, I'm John Minton from Rowan Joe Junk Haul and Removal. I'm a 30-year combat vet, and I'd love to put that kind of discipline and commitment to work for you. We're locally owned, family owned, and veteran owned. We do residential and commercial clean out, light demo, and hoarding clear out. Hey, we don't judge. We've all got our stuff. Find us online at rowanjoejunk.com. That's ROENJO junk.com. And remember, when it's got to go, call Rowan Joe.
You all have helped support MyPillow and their employees in these tough economic times. Mike Lindell knows this and continues to give back to listeners with deals on his most popular products. You've heard us recently speak about the My Slippers, the Giza Sheets, MyPillow 2.0, and more. Great news. The MyPillow 6-pack bath towel sets are back in stock. The proprietary technology makes them extremely absorbent, yet still provides that soft feel you look for in a towel. The set comes with 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. Regular price $79.98, and for a limited time, you can get this 6-pack towel set for only $39.99 with promo code SCOTT. That's a 50% savings. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-506-9028 and use promo code SCOTT to save 50% on the MyPillow 6-pack towel sets. That's just $39.99 for a set. This deal won't last long. Enter promo code SCOTT and save big money today.
Energy independence and security. These are some of the ways life is better for North Dakota and the entire U.S. thanks to our oil and natural gas industry. Being less dependent on unfriendly foreign energy sources makes our nation stronger. Oil and natural gas make it possible. With North Dakota's resources, we're making America more secure for generations. North Dakota's oil and natural gas, advancing the possibilities.
Tonight, Republican candidates face off at the second presidential debate on the flag. Brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation. Join our online watch party for live reaction during the event at AM1100theflag.com or on our Flag social channels.
All right, welcome back. 7:22 here in the East, and what would it be, 6:22 out in the western part of the state, and you are listening to the debate pregame show. Number 2, myself, Jay Thomas, along with Steve Hallstrom. Scott Hennen will join us. I said we were going to get a clip from Kellyanne Conway, but we're going to hold off on that because, Steve, you got a great guest for us.
Yeah, we've had the privilege to have Lance Trover on a couple of times along the way here on our different programs. Lance is campaign spokesperson for the Doug Burgum for President campaign. He's been kind enough to take a couple minutes from a very crazy night out in Simi Valley, California. Lance, thanks so much for the time tonight. I trust you kept Doug off the basketball court last night.
I was going to say there's one thing I can promise you that did not happen. There was no basketball played yesterday or today. That is one thing I can guarantee.
Oh, good. I'm glad it was a swim or a light jog. That's good to hear. What's the What's the spirit within the Burgum campaign going into tonight? What's the feeling? What's the vibe as you guys get ready for this big night?
Well, first, thanks for having me on. It's a beautiful evening here in Simi Valley at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, and you can just feel the excitement. I just saw the governor a few minutes ago. He is pumped and ready, and you would never know that he had torn his Achilles a month ago and that he's kind of moving around basically on one leg. I mean, the guy's got more energy than the entire staff put together. So he's excited. To get out there and talk about his message. I think we talked the other day. The first debate was about introducing himself to a larger, broader swath of the American public. I think you'll hear more of that tonight, but I think you'll hear some more specificity from him in terms of his record as both a business leader, creating jobs, and the work that he's done in North Dakota as both cutting budgets, balancing budgets, and cutting taxes. So I think you'll hear a little bit more of that tonight, but he's super excited and thrilled to be here.
Lance Jay Thomas here. Are we going to see him jump in harder tonight when he gets those opportunities and really get his voice out there to America?
I think you'll hear him, from an issue perspective, talking about the issues that he talks about everywhere he goes: economy, energy, and national security. And I think you'll hear him put some more meat on the bones in terms of his record in creating jobs. I think you'll hear him say today that, he's created more jobs than everybody on that stage combined. And I think that's just one of the things you'll hear. And I think you're going to hear it with some gusto tonight. So I expect you will hear a lot out of it.
What advice did you give him for tonight?
Well,
other than don't play basketball.
You're right. I don't. Look, you guys know the governor. He doesn't need a lot of advice. I think he knows what he needs to do. He knows the issues at hand, and I think he's just really pumped and excited to be here. And I think it's going to be a really good night.
What do you think he learned from that first experience that maybe nobody could have really prepared you for, but you just had to go through it to really learn it, so that he might be more prepared, a little bit more comfortable tonight?
Well, I think in instances like that, it's hard to prepare for something like that. You do what, that's not just him. I think that's for anybody on that stage. And I think you're going to hear from him tonight, a pumped up and excited to be here guy that's going to talk about the issues, put some meat on the bones, and talk about how we can really move this country forward, talk about how we're on the wrong path with the economy and the energy and the national security front. I think you'll just hear a lot of that same message, but you hear it with a lot of gusto tonight.
I think, Lance, that you and your campaign have been pretty disciplined all along by saying this is a marathon, not a sprint. Even if we don't make the second debate stage, there's still so much left to be told in this story. But I've got to believe that if everybody in the campaign was honest with themselves, they would say this is really huge for us to be here on the stage tonight. Yes?
It is, and I think it's huge for anybody to be on the stage. I mean, remember, this is, and the governor says this a lot. I mean, you're vying to be the president of the United States. This is a monumental undertaking, and you're right. We do say it is a marathon, not a sprint. And if we go back to when he first launched, there were a lot of people saying, "Oh my gosh, how are you going to make the debate stage? Geez, are you going to make the debate stage?" Of course, he, and blew it away and made the debate stage, and then it happened again. And I think it's the story we've talked about on here all the time, Steve, is that, he's been underestimated, his entire life, right? The kid from Arthur, North Dakota, a town of 300 people, no one could say, everybody's like, well, you can't start a software company in North Dakota. You can't then sell it for $1 billion. Oh, wait, you can't, become governor of North Dakota. And you can't get reelected. He did get reelected, right? So it is a huge deal. And that's why he's super excited to be here and talk about those issues. Lance,
one more question. I know time's tight, and we really appreciate you doing this. I mean, your plate's full. Thank you for giving us time on the debate pregame show. There are a lot of issues. Steve and I were discussing this earlier. Crime, the economy, the southern border, Ukraine. I mean, there's a ton of stuff, and these issues, it's not like they haven't always been here, but they have grown so big now for Americans. And I know these are all issues that concern the governor, but you're with them day in and day out. What, of all the issues happening that are being discussed, which one is really irking him the most, that's really keeping him up at night?
Well, I don't know that it's the three that he talks about. That's why he talks about those three: the economy, energy, national security, because he views those as completely intertwined. We have an economy with a lot of our energy policy is, that is backwards from the Biden administration, is driving the higher costs that we face. It's also causing us problems with national security when it comes to Ukraine. So it's really not just one issue. That's why he speaks as those three. It's almost those three are wrapped into one big package. And that's why he continually says, look, these are the three things, these three issues the Biden administration are completely wrong on. We need to change trajectory. We've got to get that corrected.
All right, Lance, last question, and we'll let you go. What will define success tonight for Doug Burgum on that stage?
Look, I think being here is a success in and of itself. And I think it's just continuing, as we talked about, the marathon. It's not a sprint, and it's just one more step forward working towards January and February.
Very good, sir. Hey, we appreciate it. We know there's a million things going on. Thank you for taking the time to visit with us, and best of luck to you and everybody on Team Burgum tonight.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Take care. Lance Trover, campaign spokesperson, Doug Burgum for president. Jay, I wonder if he's going to pick off, like a Chris Christie. So he's going to be on the far left tonight on the stage. Before he was on the far right, and it's DeSantis in the middle, and then you got Nikki Haley on one side, and then next to him, or next to DeSantis on the other side, will be Vivek Ramaswamy. Then it's Tim Scott and Chris Christie, Mike Pence and Doug Burgum on the wings. I wonder if Doug is going to take this opportunity to try to pick off somebody in that 4 or 5 slot and try to go after somebody there and try to, because if he goes after, say, Donald Trump tonight, that's a big hill to climb. But can you go after Chris Christie, who you're standing right next to, and try to bring him down a notch to try to elevate a position?
Well, the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? And that's one bite at a time. And you start taking those bites, to start with those smaller, 4%ers and work your way up. I think if you try to go after a DeSantis, I'm not saying don't debate DeSantis or Haley or Vivek, but if you try to go at them hard, I think they will just destroy you. But if you start grabbing the smaller ones and start getting some of their percentage points and start growing that way, I think he can climb the ladder, Steve.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. We'll see. It's great because it's like 6 stories in one tonight, no doubt about that. When we come back on our debate special pregame show, Steve Hallstrom, Jay Thomas, Scott Hennen will be in the building here in just a little bit. We're going to visit with Kelly Armstrong from D.C., taking a break from the swamp negotiations and giving us a few minutes, his perspective. What does he want to see from Doug Burgum tonight, and what does he want to see from his Republican colleagues as they partake in this debate tonight? We'll have that for you when we come back on WDAY and KTGO Radio, or WZFG and KTGO Radio.
The presidential debate on the flag is brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation.
Energy independence and security. These are some of the ways life is better for North Dakota and the entire U.S. thanks to our oil and natural gas industry. Being less dependent on unfriendly foreign energy sources makes our nation stronger. Oil and natural gas make it possible. With North Dakota's resources, we're making America more secure for generations. North Dakota's oil and natural gas, advancing the possibilities.
Do you suffer from stiff, achy, chronic knee pain? Have you been told you have arthritis? Is knee pain keeping you from enjoying your favorite hobbies? If so, the next 60 seconds could change your life. Please listen carefully. If we find you're a candidate for our unique approach, we'll do a trial treatment, and day one, you will know without a doubt if we can help you. Pick up the phone right now and call 701-353-2230. And best of all, we may be able to reduce and even eliminate your knee pain without pills, shots, or surgery. But due to limited capacity, you must call now at 701-353-2230. Hurry, call now to find out if you qualify for our program that is changing lives and helping people save time, money, and agony. Call now at 701-353-2230. You have nothing to lose, so call right now.
You may be thinking about adding a fence and gate to your backyard or replacing your old fence and gate for something new. Now is the time to make it a reality. Get a secure fence from American Security and Gate in Fargo and save up to $1,000 when you get an estimate for this fall. American Security and Gate can help with any size or style of fence with a strong and easy-to-use gate. Save up to $1,000 when you get it scheduled for this fall. Security is just a click away. When you need a fence, go to FenceCompanyFargo.com.
Nearly 50,000 good-paying jobs. That's one of the ways life is better in North Dakota, thanks to our oil and natural gas industry. People deserve an opportunity to earn a good, honest living. Oil and natural gas are making it possible. With these jobs, thousands of North Dakotans are bringing prosperity home for their families and communities, and will for generations to come. North Dakota's oil and natural gas, advancing the possibilities.
Tonight, Republican candidates face off at the second presidential debate on the flag. Brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation. Join our online watch party for live reaction during the event at am1100theflag.com or on our Flag social channels.
Steve Hallstrom, Jay Thomas, and Scott Hennen here in the building tonight as well. It is the pregame show for the second presidential Republican primary debate. We want to say thank you to our sponsors, Americans for Prosperity, Casey Joe's Catering, and the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation. We'll be joined by Kelly Armstrong in just a moment, but first, Scott Hennen's here. Hey, good evening, Scotty.
Scotty, how you doing, buddy?
Steve, Jay, doing great. Out here with our panel of experts. This is the real people panel. We're excited about that. Here's a Marine, a veteran. What are you looking for tonight out of the candidates?
Looking for somebody to talk about the issues that matter.
Which would be what?
The economy and making sure that we can afford to pay our bills.
Not a novel concept. How about you? What are you looking forward to?
The border and the economy.
Show of hands, how many in here are in the Donald Trump camp? Want Donald Trump to be the next nominee? All right, I'd say about half. And you kind of gave it the 50-50, right? How about for Governor Burgum? Yeah, all right. So you got even some of the Trump folks saying, I'm for Governor Burgum too. So a little sampling of what we have for folks here. I know Kelly's waiting, but we're going to be checking in with these folks as we go. Who won, who lost, who's doing great, who blew it. You guys get to lay it on. And we have some great chow here, as you just mentioned.
Yeah,
so
great chow here, actually.
They're getting ready for the big game coming up.
Casey Joe's Catering, man, brought in some great stuff. We have pulled pork. We've got the cheesy potatoes, which you just destroyed.
Yeah, I kind of did. I crushed those things.
The Rice Krispie chocolate bars, you hit those pretty good. The coleslaw, we got to go.
I did not discriminate tonight.
No,
on the food.
You did not. Platter. And plenty of food and beverage here. And we'll get to the Kellyanne Conway audio here in a bit, but now we got again a busy night, and I know this dude has been busy. He's nonstop. Congressman Kelly Armstrong, welcome to the debate pregame show. What do you want to see tonight, Kelly?
You know, I want to see these guys come out, and I want to see them make a case why they should be the president of the United States. I've said this 1,000 times, and I'll say it again. The rest of the world could use a little more Doug Burgum, a little more North Dakota. I want them to talk about why unleashing the American people and the great businesses, just like we have in North Dakota, is a better example than a large federal government. You just had two guys talk about the two most important issues, the economy and the border. I want to hear their solutions to both of them.
You know, Steve Hallstrom, we had Lance Trover on, the campaign spokesperson for Doug Burgum, and Steve and I were talking after we got done with Lance, and that is, how does Governor Burgum, how does he go after the other folks on this stage? Does he go after the Pences, the folks that are polling kind of low, and just start biting it that way? Or does he go hard and go after DeSantis and Haley? And I think we both agreed the best thing is to just start grabbing those candidates. If you're really going to hit somebody hard, hit those folks, start grabbing their numbers, and then work your way up to the bigger dogs.
Well, I agree, and I think this, and one thing I think about the last debate, you know, you got to be who you are. I've known the governor for a long time. We suffer from North Dakota Nice. A 7-person debate stage isn't the best place for that. But I will say this. He was the one guy last time that was talking about a limited federal government instead of a bigger federal government. And it's something I get really frustrated with a lot in D.C. The cure to a big liberal federal government is not a big conservative federal government. And more involving the states, more having government go back to the people that they're closest to. And I thought he actually did a good job of that in the last debate when he got the opportunity to talk. And I hope he figures out a way to do it in his own way where he can get himself injected into the conversations about energy and about the things that we know how to do well in North Dakota and the rest of the country could learn from.
Kelly, I'm glad you said that, because when you and I visited in Milwaukee after the debate, you and I were talking about climate change and energy and fossil fuels development. And you said something I thought was really astute. You said, Doug can go there. he can have that conversation and he can talk it like an expert because it's what we do in North Dakota. And when you talk about energy policy, making us energy independent and bringing down fuel prices, nobody is as positioned as Doug is to talk about what that can mean to a state and how that can boost the state's economy. So that's the one issue I think that he really didn't get a chance to, and very few people did. But I really hope he jumps in that ring tonight.
Yeah, and he caught a bad break. There's 7 people on the stage, and they had to cut to a commercial, and that's kind of when the question closed out. You just got to figure out a way to check yourself into those conversations. But you're exactly right. Nobody on that stage can match him on this. And here's why it's important, whether you're from North Dakota or anywhere else, because about 85% of all our inflationary pressures over the last 2 years are energy related. And he can explain why what we do in North Dakota should be unleashed on the rest of the economy and why it will actually matter to a pocketbook of anybody, anywhere, in any household, anywhere in the United States.
Is there an opportunity? I mean, let's be honest about this, Kelly. President Trump is way ahead in the polls, but we don't know what might happen between now and then. It certainly seems like President Trump is going to be the nominee, but is there a scenario out there under which maybe if he even is the nominee, he can't get to the general election? Or do you feel like if as long as he wants to stay in, he's probably the guy and there's not much legally that could derail him?
Yeah, I think more than anything, any of these candidates are doing, the way that he is being, prosecuted and treated comparatively to anybody else we've ever seen. Quite frankly, the Democrats in D.C. are doing as much to bolster his chances or anybody. But, they got to go out and fight for it. There's not a single person on that stage that's doing it because they don't think they'd be the best person to be president, and they got to go out and make that case. And, you just asked. I wasn't there. I didn't see the hands. I'm reading impeachment inquiry documents in my office in D.C. But even the people that support Doug in North Dakota still have an affinity for Donald Trump. So you've got to go out and be able to make a case, and you've got to do it in a way where you don't alienate the base, but you make the case for yourself and why you are the person who can take this job over right now.
Kelly,
we should all be one. Anybody from North Dakota should be a one-issue candidate right now, and that's who could beat Joe Biden.
Yeah, no kidding. Kelly, question for you. If you put your defense attorney hat on and you're in the legal circle of Donald Trump, knowing the venues that he has to go in on all of these, like New York City, hello, right? Federal court in Washington, D.C., hello. He does not. He goes in at a huge disadvantage just by where these trials are being held. It's really unrealistic to think he's going to run the table and get not guilty in all of those. What's the strategy here to remain a candidate? Is it appeals? So this goes to after the election, or what?
So, right, there's a New York state case, there's a Georgia state case. So let's talk about the 2 federal cases right now. You've got a case in Miami, and you've got all of that going on. And then you've got a case in D.C., which is being prosecuted by the same guy. Well, they said the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, is delaying discovery in the Miami case. And I have no doubt in my mind that it's to free up those dates for a trial in D.C., which is a more favorable judge and a more favorable jury. So what do? Not all of these cases are going to trial before the next election. The laws of time and space don't allow that to happen. So you continue to campaign for president. You listen to your lawyers, which is uniquely difficult when you're campaigning for president. And, there are real significant legal issues in these cases that everybody glosses over because they want to politicize it. And he's got a good lawyer in Georgia. He's got good guys working for his team. It's obviously a weird place to be, but you just continue to plow forward and continue to do what you're doing and go for it. They're not going to be able to try all 4 of them, and I believe this. I think they're trying to move the case into D.C. quicker than the case in Miami because they like the judge and they like the venue better.
Kelly, who on this? I want to go back to the stage tonight, and who is the biggest threat to Trump right now on that stage?
Oh, I don't know. I think, you have to have the moments and you have to deal with those things. I thought Nikki Haley did well. If you look at the polling of, under no circumstances, never, Pence and Christie don't have good numbers, but it's so early. I think you have to go out and do it, and you got to fight for it. I think, I think some things Vivek says are pretty interesting, and it's okay to have fun when you're running for president. I personally wouldn't say the first thing that comes to my mind all the time, and it's a contradiction to something you said 6 weeks prior. I think of all of them so far to this point, excluding Governor Burgum, I think Nikki Haley has made the best case of why she's unique and different. But this is the second debate in a series of a lot of them.
Let me ask you what you think will be the dominating topic tonight. I mean, there's so many things, as you guys were talking earlier, whether it's the border, whether it's international policy, whether it's how we left Afghanistan. I mean, I can go on and on and on. I happen to think the blinking dash light of warning on the dashboard of the United States of America is $33 trillion in debt. $33 trillion in debt. I'd love to hear from every one of them. Okay, what's my plan? How am I going to get the economy growing so we start paying down more of this interest? How are we going to spend less? What's a balanced budget amendment? Do you think that comes up at all tonight?
Yeah, and I think you got to talk about it even in more specific and acute terms. We're running a true $2 trillion deficit right now. This is the clearest way you can make a distinction from the Biden administration. That and the border. The border, by any stretch of the imagination, the border is in significantly worse shape than it was under any time under Donald Trump's presidency. You've got a mayor of New York City fighting with the Biden administration, the governor of Massachusetts fighting with the Biden administration. They're about to build tent cities in Chicago because of this crisis. This is the greatest country in the history of the world, and by pure abdication of responsibility, we have an absolute migrant crisis, and we have a fentanyl crisis, and I think those are the two issues. I think those are the two issues top of mind. And then I think everybody has to start talking about the Ukraine situation and be honest with the American people about where they stand and how that plays out moving forward. Well, it can't be a blank check.
You know what?
I mean, it just can't be a blank check.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We can't do this anymore. We can't afford it. We cannot do it. Steve brought up earlier in the pregame show. It's just a great thing. He said, look, man, I do not want bumper sticker sayings tonight. And we're hoping that that's not
good luck.
That's not what we're going to hear. Do you think tonight we are going to get more candidness from these candidates where they're going to get into they're going to tell us how they're going to fix these problems?
Well, yeah, you have two of that, though, right? And this is the great thing with having a big field. It's also that it's structurally a problem with having the big field. You got to try and get your viral moment. That's the way politics works right now. Whether we like that or dislike that isn't the point. It's the truth. But, yeah, we want to see some substance because you know what? All of those, everybody on that stage is a conservative. Everybody on that stage is a Republican. The differences aren't going to be that significant. You have to explain how you're going to go get it done.
Yeah, you have to give people confidence that you are the person, that you understand the issue and you've got a plan to fix it. No question.
By the way, Dana Perino and Stuart Varney were doing a little interview on somebody on Fox, I forget who, and they said their number one goal tonight was to get these candidates to debate each other, to get out of the way and let them debate each other. And that's where I think you get beyond bumper stickers and sound bites when you're actually in the trenches.
Kelly, you wanted to say something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the other things, and I got this advice a long time ago from a really smart trial lawyer, you have to be able to do this, but you also have to stay comfortable in your own skin. Because if you try and pretend to do something you're not, the American people can see through it. And then you have to keep that persona for the rest of the campaign, which doesn't work. So you got to do it. You have to. I mean, Tim Scott's personality is very different than Nikki Haley's personality. Is very different than Governor Burgum's personality. But that doesn't mean they can't mix it up. They can't debate each other. They can do it respectfully. They can do it with a little lack of respect. I mean, that's what people want to see, somebody who's going to fight for them, and they're going to have the opportunity to do it, and I'm excited.
Kelly, we asked you for 10 minutes, and we're about there right now, but before we go, I've got to ask you, you're right in the middle of all the negotiations and the budget hearings going on in D.C. Can you give us an update tonight on what's happening with some of the spending bills and where that stands right now as we speak here at 7:45?
So we're marking up amendments on 4 appropriations bills combined with the one we passed before recess. That would be 73% of government funding. I don't know if we have the votes to pass them. We have a 4-vote majority, and we have an open amendment process. Every single member can bring amendments, but we're going to continue to work through that. And at the same time, I'm working with my conservative colleagues to recognize that having a conservative CR, because this is getting solved in a CR, and anybody who tells you it's not is quite frankly not being honest. So would you rather have a conservative CR as a starting point, or would you rather get rolled by the Senate? And so we're trying to figure out a way to move these things forward in good faith, and also figure out a way where conservatives have the best spot at the negotiating table. And on top of that, we're starting our first impeachment inquiry hearing tomorrow in oversight. So
by the way,
I may not actually get to watch a whole lot of the debate.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll fill you in. You can tune in our post game after maybe your evening is done. We might still be here talking about it if it's all good. Kelly, we do really appreciate the time. We know you're super busy. Thanks for doing this tonight.
Absolutely, and thanks, Scott and Steve and Jay. It's always good to talk to you as well, man.
Yeah, you too. All right, go North Dakota. Go Kelly. Thanks.
Hey,
appreciate it.
7:48. I want to mention too. Hey, you can watch this live pre-debate program we got it going on our AM 1100 The Flag Facebook page, also our AM 1100 The Flag YouTube page. And by the way, on the YouTube page, got a good debate going on in there, good conversation. There's a chat room where you can jump in there. And I want to do a shout out to a gentleman named Merle. He is so excited because he's lives in rural New York State without a TV, and he says, appreciate you guys doing this. So we've got him all the way over in New York watching us.
Fantastic, Merle. Welcome, brother. You can be an honorary North Dakotan tonight with us. Thanks for doing it. All right, we're going to send it back to Scott Hennen. We want to, before we do that, though, say thank you to our sponsors tonight, Americans for Prosperity, Casey Joe's Catering, North Dakota Petroleum Foundation, and we also want to welcome to our audience tonight some folks from Americans for Prosperity and Cass County Republicans who are joining us here at our Thunder Road headquarters. So welcome to everybody. Scotty, let's send it back over to you.
Right. I'm going to chat with a few folks here about some advice they'd give to Doug Burgum tonight. Justin from the Lakes, you're a Minnesota guy, but you've got our North Dakota governor on the stage. What's he need to do?
Again, stand out. He needs to jump in and be more aggressive. And I agree, with what the coverage was before with, he was probably in a lot of pain the last time, and just like, I want to get this over with as quick as possible.
Who are you rooting for tonight? Who do you want to see come out of this the winner?
It's a tough one. I have a lot of favorites, and as you guys were just talking about, if Trump's in this, it's obviously Trump for me, but if it's not him, I like Vivek. I do like Burgum. I'd say the only one that up there, probably or a couple that I wouldn't recommend would be Asa and Christie, right? They should go.
Yeah, Asa's already got bounced, of course. He didn't make the debate, but Chris Christie will be there. Any Chris Christie fans here? All I heard were groans, you guys. I just heard like kind of a sound of like, I don't know, pain is what I got out of that. What do you want Doug Burgum to do tonight?
I want him to get up there, be aggressive, and push the issues. He knows what they are, and he's been able to make it happen here in North Dakota.
All right, that's good. What would you like to hear from the governor tonight?
Oh, he can keep doing the same message he's always done. I think he just needs to be strong with that.
So you're a fan?
Yes, very much.
Kind of fun to have a North Dakota governor on the stage, isn't it? Yeah, it's a good time. What do you want to see from the governor tonight?
Well, just keep on and letting us know why we should vote for him. It's he's got a real tough hill to climb, and if he climbs it, he deserves it.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch. How about you? What do you want from the governor tonight?
Just get his point across. He's got good points, and he just needs to hit it home.
You want to be a little more rough and tumble?
Oh, yes.
Get in the mix?
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. How about you? What do you want tonight?
I just want to see some fire in the belly. I want to see any candidate. I just want to see him, it's kind of a hockey term like I was talking about, just drop the gloves and start fighting, and not each other fighting Biden.
Yeah, no kidding. Take on the issues. Good point. Kim?
I think it's good to get attention to North Dakota, to have our governor up there at people that think we're a rectangular-shaped blank spot in the nation's consciousness, as Eric Severide once said. Get to see that we actually have people here, and he needs to hit a home run, I think, to gain traction.
Everybody's looking for that viral moment, right? The big soundbite from the night. I think it was probably, unfortunately, Chris Christie's last time with the Chat GPT slam on Vivek Ramaswamy. That was probably one I remember more than others. But whatever that is, it's what they're looking for. And I think we're all tired of talking points and bumper stickers and everything else. Just get to the meat of the issues. What issue is most important for you tonight?
Election integrity. Because if we don't have good elections, we don't have people that we're really voting for. So we need to make sure that our elections are free and fair.
Do you think that'll come up tonight?
I hope it does, because every one of those candidates, if they're for free and fair elections, they should be advocating for that.
The number one champion of election integrity in America right now would be who? Anybody? Donald Trump, right? So these people are trying to off Donald Trump. It'll be very interesting to see if they go there, because sadly, when you say election integrity, paper ballots, no machines, same-day voting, get rid of absentee voting, get rid of mail-in ballots, then all of a sudden you're a conspiracy theorist and you rush the Capitol on January 6th. That's what they'll pull. So it'll be very interesting to see if they go there, because it would be gutsy to do it. What are you looking for tonight?
I don't know. I just like to hear something more than, we just don't see the same event without Trump up there. No nicknames. We need.
You want a little theater, huh?
Yeah, why not? Make it more watchable. I mean, they're going to hit certain issues that the moderators want them to hit. Let's have a little fun with it too.
What's your name?
I'm Jacob.
How old are you, Jacob?
22.
Glad you're here. That's awesome. That we've had some youngsters at all of our watch parties, and that's pretty cool. What are you watching for tonight?
Oh, I'm a big economic guy, so that's what I'll be looking out for.
What do you want to hear about the economy?
I'm really just economic prosperity, and not necessarily it's an interesting concept and one that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about, actual economic prosperity.
How about say, what are you going to do about $33 trillion in debt?
I have a brother out there.
Sure, but I think it's more along the lines of how are you going to spend the next debt that you're going to create, because the debt isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, good point. What are you looking for tonight?
So I really want to see Governor Burgum talk about the victories of North Dakota and why it is that this is the best state in America to grow a business.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a good story to tell, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got a lot of fantastic things to point out about North Dakota, and I think in the first debate that didn't quite come out, so I'd really like to see that tonight.
What do you think is his best story to bring to the country about North Dakota?
I would say just the rapid GDP growth in this state alone. I think it shows that we've got effective policies for small business here.
I'm hoping lots of energy gets in tonight, too, because I got to think back to the economy and your question, I got to think the pain point of everybody filling up at the pump is really causing people to have a bit of a snootful and say, you know what, we need to do something about this. We need to do something about it bad. I'm going to go to the back of the room here, get some folks that are enjoying that wonderful dinner that we have tonight, and chew fast. What are you looking forward to hearing from tonight from the candidates?
I guess I'd like to hear what their plans are for the border. I think that's our number one crisis right now.
Amen. That's a big one. How about you?
Governor Burgum, I guess I'd like to hear how he's going to stand for the people of the United States more than he's stood for us as North Dakota people on some things. So,
give me an example what he should have done better.
Well, I'd like to know, is he pro-life, pro-choice? If he is pro-life, how does he feel about my body, my choice? And take that one step further to all, not just women, but all men and women and everything else. I think he failed to stand for a lot of people in North Dakota when they had to choose between taking a vaccination they didn't believe in and losing a job. And a lot of those people, first responders, a lot of those people, military veterans and what have you. And I think he failed to stand up for a lot of those people in our state, unlike a lot of other governors like South Dakota, Montana, what have you. So
it would have been, Ron DeSantis leads with that. Any Ron DeSantis fans here? Anybody rooting for Ron DeSantis tonight? Raise your hand. Okay, yeah. Timid, not necessarily jumping up and down for Ron DeSantis, but not bad. But he's got probably the best story to tell as a governor during COVID for sure. And I think that is a weak spot a little bit for Governor Burgum, the mask mandate, and he certainly was an evangelist for the vaccine. There's no doubt about that. So interesting take from everybody here. We're getting ready to watch it all, and we'll be checking in with this group as we go throughout the night.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Scott. One thing we did want to do for you is get another expert's opinion and perspective on what the playbook should be tonight. And Kellyanne Conway is a former senior advisor to President Trump, and she told Fox News Channel's Bill Hemmer this morning what the playbook should be for these 7 candidates tonight.
I'm watching for those breakout moments, Bill and Shannon, but I don't think that means you're grabbing a headline or you're doing some memorable turn of phrase. I think it means that you're the candidate that proves to the country you're ready to be commander-in-chief on day one. And the domestic policy steward. The economy is still the number one issue. And for all the talk about people being dissatisfied with Trump and Biden, I would remind everybody from, I think, 1980 to 2008, we had a Bush or a Clinton on the national ticket the entire time. So voters do like to say they want change and choice and options and revolution, but they tend to stick with with what they know. I think that gives both Biden and Trump a little bit of an advantage. I personally think these 7 Republican candidates are going about taking on Trump all wrong. I think if you want to show that you're ready to be commander-in-chief and president of the United States on day one, you have to come here with specific policy prescriptions, not sound bites, and you have to give us a 3 or 4 point plan that we can understand, that's accessible and credible and logical for each of these issues. Take law enforcement for a second. You just showed what happened in Philadelphia overnight. It's heartbreaking. It's going on everywhere. The Democratic Party said defund the police. The Republican Party, somebody should stand up tonight, Bill, and say, look, I want to make sure that our law enforcement at the border, in our local communities, our veterans, our military spouses, our Blue Star families, our Gold Star families, all of these groups that have been dissed and denigrated by the Democrats time and again, we're going to make sure that they are generously resourced and more deeply respected. They should come out and say, if Zelensky asked to meet me last week at the White House, here's what I would have told him. Would you have taken the meeting? Would you have given more money? Would you have opened up our hearts or our pocketbooks or both? And we're having a parents' rights renaissance. I want to hear these Republicans tonight talk about opportunity scholarships, school choice, charter schools, zero proficiency in the Baltimore school system in some places. Kids are suffering. We are mortgaging their futures away by not providing a good education. But I think they should take on Donald Trump by taking on Joe Biden. The sound bites and the tweets you just showed, I think, are meaningless if you're not showing the split screen of you versus Joe Biden. That's how you win an election.
Well, okay. And guys,
she was so good.
She was really good.
Wow.
When you think about what has happened just in the last 48 hours in this country, the looting and the larceny in Philadelphia last night, the border, which is a story every single day. You've got crime, you've got the economy, you've got energy, gas prices going up. You couldn't ask for better timing to have this debate. These candidates should be licking their chops, ready to say, here's how I'm going to fix this problem that you just watched on the newscast today.
And that's what we all Americans want to see. We want answers tonight, not just I'm going to fix it. How are you going to fix it? Back to Burgum real quick. I know we got to get to the debate. We're a minute and 12 seconds away. Great one. Being from a small town makes Doug Burgum more like most Americans, but growing up on a farm is what gave him the toughness, work value that kept him in the last debate without painkillers for 2 hours. Doug Burgum learned this as a farm kid. He should exploit it and brag about it tonight, guys.
He got 10 minutes of time in that 2-hour debate last time. We're going to time it tonight and see if he does better. I'm guessing he will. I'm guessing he's going to bust his way in.
Thank you, North Dakota Petroleum Foundation, Americans for Prosperity, Casey Joe's Catering. We're back after the debate. Let's see what happens. Round number 2 coming up now.
Varney and Ilya Calderon. In Simi Valley stands a monument to one of the most beloved leaders in our nation's history, Ronald Reagan. The Gipper, the great communicator, America's 40th commander-in-chief. He railed against big government.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
And sought peace through strength.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
40 years after Reagan's landslide re-election, the Republican Party faces critical questions. What does it mean to be a conservative?
We fight for the truth.
We are not going to worry about what the left and the media say about us.
What is the key to a thriving economy?
It's innovation, not regulation.
America could do for anyone.
This is WDAY Fargo Moorhead and KTGO Tioga, Watford City, Williston.
We will stop the earmarks.
What is America's role in the world?
We need to build a military fitted to the widening challenges in an ever more dangerous world.
Sometimes you avoid war by showing you're tough.
And the country faces even more challenges. Would Reagan even recognize the country in which we now live? Tonight, candidates seeking the Republican nomination converge in California to chart a new path for the grand old party. Now is the time for choosing.
Welcome to the second Republican debate of the 2024 primary, live from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. We're inside the spectacular Air Force One Pavilion, where the stage is set for a showdown. I'm Stuart Varney of Fox Business, and I am thrilled to be sitting alongside my co-moderators, Fox News Channel Dana Perino and Ilya Calderon, Univision.
Good evening. Thank you, Stuart. President Reagan famously described America as a shining city on a hill. And tonight, 7 candidates will make the case they should be the one to lead that city into a brighter tomorrow. But first, they have to convince you, the voter. Please allow me to welcome our Spanish-speaking audience. Muy buenas noches a todos. Desde la Biblioteca Presidencial Ronald Reagan, los precandidatos republicanos también buscan su voto para las primarias del partido. Bienvenidos.
And good evening. So let's meet the candidates who have qualified and chosen to be on this stage tonight. They are positioned by the order they rank in the polls, with the highest polling candidate in the middle. Standing center stage, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Flanking the governor, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley.
Next is South Carolina Senator Tim Scott and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
On the wings tonight, former Vice President Mike Pence and North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum.
We have questions on a wide variety of issues important to primary voters. Candidates get 1 minute to answer and 30 seconds to respond if singled out. When their time runs out, we'll all hear this. We have a lot of ground to cover, so please keep it civilized.
Let's get going. We are in this spacious, sunny place tonight, designed to reflect the very nature and character of Ronald Reagan. It's a place that makes you proud to be an American. Yet today our nation is drowning in division and incivility.
Voters say they dread the 2024 election and find politics exhausting. 2 in 3 Americans think the country is on the wrong track. And 3 in 4 say the economy is not in good shape.
Prices are up 18% since 2020. More than half of the U.S. population has little access to childcare. 85% of Americans say their personal finances are a source of stress.
Americans want to believe a leader who says, "You can follow me. I've got you. Don't worry." President Biden is trying to do that with Bidenomics.
And yesterday, he joined the picket lines where auto workers are demanding more wages and job security. Senator Scott, you recently reacted by praising Ronald Reagan for firing air traffic controllers in the 1980s, saying, "You strike, you're fired." Would you fire thousands of striking auto workers today, Senator?
Obviously, the President of the United States cannot fire anybody in the private sector. However, we should look back at the first bill in Congress under Joe Biden. The first bill had $86 billion for the union pensions because they continue to overpromise yet underdeliver. One of the challenges that we have in the current negotiations is that they want 4-day French work weeks, but more money. They want more benefits, working fewer hours. That is simply not going to stand. I sat in a finance committee hearing when a widow came before the committee who was promised pensions from the unions, $4,000 a month. Unfortunately, it had been cut to $1,000 a month. We must make sure that we honor the commitments that we make, and one of the ways that we do that, do not overpromise and then underdeliver and leave the taxpayers on the hook. I'll say this, Joe Biden should not be on the picket line. He should be on the southern border working to close our southern border because it is
smart move by Scott.
Good pivot. And insecure.
This is the first question they asked these
horrible
people
question,
tonight.
ridiculous
Questions
in the last
go.
12 months because of fentanyl. It is devastating. Every county in America is now a border county because fentanyl has devastated Americans in every single state. I will also say 6 million illegal crossings since Joe Biden has taken office. And he eliminated Title 42. The one thing he should do is finish the wall, reinstate Title 42, and get the job done.
Well, I can promise you that we are going to have a lot of questions on the border and immigration. But in the meantime, we do want to talk about the economy and jobs, and especially want to talk about this strike for just a moment more. Mr. Ramaswamy, you've said you really empathize with the strikers. You're standing next to Senator Scott. Do you agree with what he said, or do you think he's wrong?
I agree with some of what he said, for sure. I like the spirit of it. I'll say that I don't have a lot of patience for the union bosses. I think that's where he and I actually have a common view. I do have a lot of sympathy for the workers, however. People are going through real hardship in this country. I've been through hardship growing up. My father stared down layoffs at GE under Jack Welch's tenure at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio. My mom had to work overtime in nursing homes in Southwest Ohio to make ends meet and pay off our home loan. So I understand that hardship is not a choice. But victimhood is a choice, and we choose to be victorious in the United States of America. You know what, if I was giving advice to those workers, I would say go picket in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. That's really where the protest needs to be. Disastrous economic policies that have driven up prices, that have driven up interest rates and mortgage rates. At the same time, wages remaining stagnant. What we need is to deliver economic growth in this country. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear energy, put people back to work by no longer paying them more money to stay at home, stabilize the U.S. dollar itself, and rescind a majority of those unconstitutional federal regulations that are hampering our economy. That is how we unleash American exceptionalism. And that's not a Democratic vision or a Republican vision. That is an American vision that we embrace economic growth, and capitalism is still the best system known to man to lift us up from poverty, and we should not apologize for it. That's what it means to be an American.
Wow. Rock solid.
Wow.
He's good.
He's very good.
He's good.
Together, the CEOs of General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis make 336
Seriously, this should be the 50th question we hear tonight. Exactly. This affects 1/1000th of the population of the country.
Inequality trend in the country. The richest 1% now controls 1/5 of all income.
Is this CNN or Fox?
Last week you said you side with American workers, but you also support how these companies operate. Which is it?
Well, thank you for the question. I want to thank Univision and Fox Business for assembling such a wonderful forum. Look, I do disagree with something Tim Scott just said. Joe Biden doesn't belong on a picket line. He belongs on the unemployment line.
Yeah.
Didn't go over well.
I'm
nice
from the
try.
second leading manufacturing state in the country per capita. I was governor of the state of Indiana. We brought 12,000 factories back to America during our administration. I know something about manufacturing. And I got to tell you,
Sorry, I nodded off.
While the union bosses are talking about class warfare and talking about disparity in wages, I have to tell you, I really believe what's driving that is Bidenomics has failed. Wages are not keeping up with inflation. Auto workers and all American workers are feeling it, and families are struggling in this economy. And Joe Biden's Green New Deal agenda is good for Beijing and bad for Detroit. We ought to repeal the Green New Deal, get rid of the mandates and subsidies that are driving American gasoline automotive manufacturing into the graveyard. And beyond that also, as President of the United States, I'll be standing with workers all across America, and I'll be standing for the right to work of every American to join a union or not join a union as they decide.
Senator Scott, you were mentioned. Will you care to respond?
There's no doubt that Joe Biden needs to be fired. That's why I'm running for president. I look forward to being the next president of the United States. I will also say, I know America can do for anyone what she's done for me. It's why we're focusing on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting the America we all love. Growing up in a single-parent household, I wondered if the American dream would work for a kid in the inner city. I've got good news for every single child. Whether you're in the inner cities of Chicago or the rural parts of Iowa, America and the dream, it is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. God bless these United States of America.
Preach it, baby.
Dr. Haley, you raise your hand.
I think we need to look at exactly what happened. Biden showed up on that picket line, but why are those workers actually there? It's because of all of the spending that he has pushed through in the economy that's raised the inflation. So when you look at the fact that we are paying higher gas prices, higher grocery prices, $7,000 more a year for families, what we need to do is I came out with an economic plan, eliminate the gas and diesel tax so that they have more money in their pocket. Let's focus on going after middle America and cutting taxes for middle America and collapsing those brackets. Let's get rid of unfair distortions like the state and local tax that they give to wealthy people in blue states and paid by red states. And let's make sure we make the small business taxes permanent. They only made those temporary. They made the corporate taxes permanent. Let's focus on what it takes to get more cash in the pockets of workers. That's when we'll be able to deal with strikes like this, not sitting on a picket line like Joe Biden did.
Enough with the strike.
We have other questions to get to about economy.
Oh, it'd be nice.
Allow me to.
I just have to. I'm sorry.
Allow me to.
I'm sorry. I have to jump in because we're missing the point, and every other network is missing the point.
Here
the
comes
reason
Doug.
why people are striking in Detroit is because Joe Biden's interference with capital markets and with free markets. The subsidies, we're subsidizing the automakers and we're subsidizing the cars, and a particular kind of car, not every car. We're subsidizing electric vehicles. And when you decide that we're going to take all of your taxpayer monies, take $1 billion, subsidize a certain type of vehicle, and the batteries come from China. China controls 85% of the rare earth minerals. They're called rare earth because they're measured in parts per million. China is moving 100,000 pounds of earth in Indonesia, in Africa. They're literally destroying the planet so that they can make a battery that's in a car subsidized here. That's why they're striking, because they need 2/3 less workers to build an electric car. Joe Biden, this strike is at Joe Biden's feet.
Good for Doug.
Nice.
Nice move.
Nice.
We're going to keep the topic of economy, but allow me to the
Demonstrates
question
a
to
real
Governor
knowledge
Christie.
of that subject.
The government
Big time.
will shut down if Congress does not reach a deal by the end of this week. Vice President Pence warns that politics of, quote, Trump's populist proteges, like Mr. Ramaswamy, are a road to ruin for the GOP. If the government shuts down, should voters blame populist Republicans?
Voters should blame everybody who's in Washington, D.C. They get sent down there to do the job, and they've been failing at doing the job for a very long time. And let's be honest about this with the voters. You know, during the Trump administration, they added $7 trillion in national debt. And now the Biden administration has put another $5 trillion on and counting. They have failed, and they're in the spot they're in now because none of them are willing to tell the truth. None of them are willing to take on the difficult issues. They just want to keep kicking the can down the road. And the inflation that Nikki spoke about is absolutely right, and it's caused by government spending. And that's why people all across this country are suffering tonight.
It's Christie. What
And
do you
yet
expect?
we don't get any answers because Joe Biden hides in his basement and won't answer as to why he's raising the debt the way he's done. And Donald Trump hides behind the walls of his golf clubs and won't show up here to answer questions like all the rest of us are up here to answer. He put $7 trillion on the debt. He should be in this room to answer those questions for the people you talk about who are suffering. And if the government closes, it's the blame.
I think Donald Trump's done more interviews than anybody on the planet Earth in politics.
The last thing they want is Trump up there because they'll annihilate them all.
And just plays to the grandstand.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Here's how we get it done in Washington. We must find a way.
Can we please respect
Get control of your debate.
Governor DeSantis, you haven't spoken. Please.
The people in Washington are shutting down the American dream with their reckless behavior. They borrowed, they printed, they spent, and now you're paying more for everything. They are the reason for that. They have shut down our national sovereignty by allowing our border to be wide open. So please spare me the crocodile tears for these people. They need to change what's going on. And where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership. And you know who else is missing in action? Donald Trump is missing in action. He should be on this stage tonight. He owes it to you to defend his record where they added $7.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation that we have now. I can tell you this, as governor of Florida, we cut taxes, we ran surpluses, we've paid down over 25% of our state debt, and I vetoed wasteful spending when it came to my desk. And as your president, when they send me a bloating spending bill that's going to cause your prices to go up, I'm going to take out this veto pen and I'm going to send it right back to them.
Pretty good.
You mentioned
Yeah, bad look for him to be last to speak, though.
Yeah.
Senator Scott, but I have a question that is on the minds of a lot of moms and dads and Americans, and I know that
better
you've been
turn it
thinking
up
about it
fast.
because child care costs, they are up. They're topping $10,000 per month. Some families are spending up to half of their income on childcare, and they're having to decide, is it worth it for me to work, or does it not make sense for me financially? In 3 days, the billions of dollars in pandemic-era funding is going to end, and 70,000 daycares could close. So you had an effort to broaden eligibility for child care assistance. That fell apart last year. And for the moms and dads out there who are worried, what can you tell them if you weren't able to get it through the Congress? How could you do it as president?
Certainly one of the things I did as a member of Congress was to make sure that we protected the Head Start programs around the country, giving people the opportunity to pick and choose the place that they send their children. The challenges that we see today under the Biden administration is that the cost for daycare has gone over $15,000 per child. In the Build Back Broker plan, he called it a Build Back Better plan, it was going up to $29,000. The way we fix that problem is to make sure that we actually cut taxes and give more Americans their money back. When I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we actually lowered a single mother's taxes by 70% on the federal level. For dual income households by 60%. Then we went a step further. We doubled the child tax credit and made it refundable. By doing that, more parents had more resources to make the decisions how to take care of their family. The one thing we should do is let the American people keep their money. When that happens, the greatest opportunities rise from the ashes.
I need to jump in.
Yeah, tell us how you're going to do it, though.
Ilya mischaracterized a part of my view. I think this artificial division is unhelpful in our party. The real divide is not between the Republicans on this stage. And in the Reagan Library, I want to say these are good people on this stage. The real divide is between the majority of us in this country who love the United States of America and share our founding ideals. Free speech, meritocracy, the idea you get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character, and the fringe minority in the Democrat Party that has a chokehold over that party. That's the real divide. Right. So this populist versus classical debate is artificial. Ilya? We need to unite this party.
Can I speak about the administration?
Get in there!
We are going to talk about immigration and the border.
Don't raise your hand, Doug. Get in there.
I think we're going to go on. You have to. We have all these questions. We're going to get to you. We're going to come back to you. There's a lot of time.
We're about child care. Nobody answered the question. In North Dakota, we knew that the cliff was coming. We knew that there was going to be millions of people without it. And so guess what? We planned.
Okay. My man came to fight.
We passed legislation because child care.
We will get you some questions, but you're going to have to let us move on. We are going to the border next.
Child care is workforce infrastructure.
And I haven't been given a chance to respond.
In 1984, President Ronald Reagan said the following.
The idea of amnesty for those who have put down roots and who have lived here, even though some time back they may have entered illegally.
2 years later, President Reagan granted amnesty to nearly 3 million immigrants, something no Democrat or Republican president has done since. Governor Christie, as governor of a non-border state in 2010, you supported a path to citizenship. But when you ran for president in 2016, you flipped, saying immigrants should be tracked like FedEx packages. Where do you stand now on a path to citizenship for 11 million of undocumented immigrants?
Well, the problem is that since no one has done anything since we first had this discussion 13 years ago, we're not in a position to be able to do any of that anymore. What we have to do now is first treat this like the law enforcement problem it is. Our laws are being broken every day at the southern border, every day. And Joe Biden and his crew is doing nothing about enforcing that law. They are letting it go. And by the way, they announced during the presidential race they were going to let it go. And we need to have a president who acts like I did as governor. Enforce the law, first and foremost. And that means what I'll do on day one is sign an executive order to send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol to make sure that we stop the flow of fentanyl over the border, but also to make sure that we send a much different message. We want you here in this country to fill the 6 million vacant jobs we have, but only if you come here to follow the law and only if you come here legally. If you come here illegally, we will apprehend you and we will send you back across the border from which you came. And the fact is that until we set a law and order agenda in this country, not only now, but in the future, we won't be able to continue this. And I'll tell you this, Donald Trump failed on this as well. He said he was going to build a wall across the whole border. He built 52 miles of wall and said Mexico would pay for it. Guess what? I think if Mexico knew that he was only going to build 52 miles, they might have paid for the 52 miles.
Thank you, Governor.
Weak sauce.
It's a pretty good
Most
line, but
illegal
it's a weak
immigrants are coming from
argument.
countries
Trump
south
did
of the
more for the
border.
border than any
You've
of
seen the Fox
these
News
people
drone.
would
It's
have.
captured the steady stream of people coming into the country on a daily basis. In fact, I believe we have a live picture of it tonight. That is happening right now, live. In the last decade, the U.S. has spent nearly $55 billion to address the root causes of migration. But crime, poverty, and corruption, they persist, and the number of migrants is only growing. Are we wasting our money?
Well, what happens is when Joe Biden waved the green flag, it told everybody to come. And now we've seen 6 million people cross the border. We've had more fentanyl that have killed Americans in the Iraq, Vietnam, or Afghanistan wars combined. We need to make sure that we are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on. So we have to secure the border. The way we do that is, first of all, defund sanctuary cities. You see what's happening in Philadelphia right now. It's got to stop.
Yeah, so
we
here's
need to
some
make
actual
sure we
plans
put
and some
25,000 more
platform
Border
pieces.
Patrol and
I like
ICE agents
this.
on the ground and let them do their job. I spent 400 miles down that border, and I'm telling you, Border Patrol agents aren't allowed to do their job. Let's go back to remain in Mexico policy. Instead of catch and release, let's go to catch and deport.
What about
and
the
let's
aid that what about the aid that federal taxpayers are paying to deal with the root causes? It's not working.
The
Or is
only
it?
aid that we should be spending right now is to secure the border, the southern border, the northern border, period.
You would cut
We
off
need
aid
to
to the
keep
region?
Americans safe, and right now Americans are not safe. Only when we fix the immigration system, only when we get the border secure, should we ever look at putting any more money into this. Our money should be about keeping Americans safe. We're not doing that. Joe Biden's not doing that. And you mentioned Congress and shutting down government. I'll make it clear. We have to change the budget process in 4 years. In 40 years. Congress has only delivered a budget on time 4 times in 40 years.
Right.
If they don't keep the government open, they should not get paid. No pay, no budget. That's the way we should
Governor
have it.
Governor DeSantis, we have a question for you. Governor DeSantis, China invested $12 billion in Latin America just last year. They signed strategic partnerships with 7 countries, including Mexico. And China's military ties to the region now include arms sales and training exercises. Are you comfortable with China deepening ties with our southern neighbors?
Of course not. And the reason why we're in this mess is because elites in D.C. for far too long have chosen surrender over strength when it comes to the CCP. Some people in our country got rich, our industrial base got hollowed out, and they have been able to build the second most powerful military in the entire world. We need a totally new approach to China. We are going to have real hard power in the Indo-Pacific, like Reagan, to deter their ambitions. We're going to have economic independence from China, where we're decoupling our economy, and we are going to go after the cultural power they have in this country. As governor of Florida, I banned the CCP from buying land in our state. We should do that all across these United States. We shouldn't have them in our universities. We shouldn't have Confucius Institutes. So you see a country in decline, our power's in decline. China's going to surpass us this decade, and if they do that, that's going to affect every single American household. As your president, I am not going to let that happen. I'm going to reverse this country's decline. We are going to choose strength, not surrender when it comes to the CCP.
America is not a country in decline. Under Joe Biden, we are a country in retreat.
You proposed, quote, universal deportation for all undocumented immigrants and their children, even if the children are citizens of the United States. Under what legal premise will you expel U.S. citizens?
So the first thing I want to say is I agree with everything. The Republicans on the stage are on the right side of this issue. Militarize the southern border, stop funding sanctuary cities, and end foreign aid to Mexico and Central America to end the incentives to come across. But I do go a step further. You're right about that, Ilya. I favor ending birthright citizenship for the kids of illegal immigrants in this country. Now, the left will howl about the Constitution and the 14th Amendment. The difference between me and them is I've actually read the 14th Amendment. What it says is that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof are citizens. So nobody believes that the kid of a Mexican diplomat in this country enjoys birthright citizenship. Not a judge or legal scholar in this country will disagree with me on that. Well, if the kid of a Mexican diplomat doesn't enjoy birthright citizenship, then neither does the kid of an illegal migrant who broke the law to come here. And as the father of two sons, it is hard for me to look them in the eye and say, you have to follow the law when our own government fails to follow its own laws. That's how we really go the distance and solve this problem and restore the rule of law.
He's
in
winning
the
this
United
debate.
States of America.
Wow, he
Because
is
that is
solid.
part of what it even means to be an American.
Senator Scott, you oppose.
We thought it was going to be DeSantis and Haley, but he's stealing the show again.
On that issue.
Yeah, there's no doubt the fact that when you think of the Constitution and the 14th Amendment, it was certainly written as it relates to slavery, not as it relates to illegal immigration. It's been applied to illegal immigration. So the challenge that we face is, in fact, one that has to do with whether or not the people that come here are under the jurisdiction of our laws. And frankly, if you come here illegally, you are not. Now, surviving a Supreme Court argument is something I can't tell you. But from a perspective of the Constitution, I think it's simple that clearly it was designed for slavery and not for illegal immigration. I'll go one step further, though. When we have a conversation about the things that are happening on this stage, we think about the fact that Vivek just said we were all good people, and I appreciate that because last debate, he said we were all bought and paid for. And I thought about that for a little while and said, you know, I can't imagine how you can say that knowing that you were just in business with the Chinese Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden millions of dollars was a partner of yours as well. It's not nonsense.
So look, here's what
Wow. Tim Scott going for the juggler.
People who are tainted by a broken system, and it's not the fault of anybody who's in politics.
Some of us are tainted.
Excuse me. Thank you for speaking while I'm interrupting. While I'm speaking.
You said bought and paid for.
If I may finish,
You can't be on both sides.
Gentlemen, you'll have your turn.
One of the challenges we should have
please focus on the issues that matter. We know we did business in China. Everybody knows that.
If I may
focus on holding Joe Biden accountable. That's what we need to be focusing on.
I actually agree with Ron DeSantis.
Speaking at the same time, no one can understand
Exactly.
your message.
So if I may, I agree with Ron DeSantis on China. When every other CEO expanded into the Chinese market, you know what I did with my first company? We opened a subsidiary in China. But you know what I did that was different than every other company? We got the hell out of there. And when I started my next company, Strive, right when that's years ago.
2023.
Right when I started my next company, Strive, to compete against BlackRock. Excuse me. To compete against BlackRock, I made a commitment that we would never do business
It's a debate
in
between
China.
you and you.
I will say
Pretty good line.
I think you have more than time to explain your point.
Well, if I was interrupted by a lot of people here, and I want to be respectful because I believe these are good
respectful
people,
last debate.
but I do not believe in these. We're sitting here in the Reagan Library.
Yes, I wish you
in
did
the
not think it
honor
was
of
midnight
Ronald
in
Reagan's
America.
library, if I may, from one admirer of Ronald Reagan to another. From one admirer of Reagan to another, we cannot
do deals with the CCP
violate
4 years ago?
This isn't productive.
I want to hear about that.
Let's have a policy
Get
debate.
control.
Let us have a policy debate.
Get nothing out of this.
No.
Let's have a policy debate. And the right answer is we need to declare independence from China.
Thank you very
and I will
much.
see that through.
Vice President Pence, in 2017, the Trump-Pence administration canceled DACA, which put the legal status of 600,000 Dreamers in the hands of the courts. Dreamers work.
I think CNN wrote these questions.
As president, if the
Maybe
Supreme
MSNBC.
Court ends DACA,
Seriously,
would
crime,
you work with
energy,
Congress
yeah,
to
security.
reach a permanent
We're not talking
solution
about any of
for
these
Dreamers?
things. Nope.
Well, first, let me say I'm glad Vivek pulled out of his business deal in 2018 in China. That must have been about the time you decided to start voting in presidential elections. So we're nice to have you participating in elections. So let me speak to this issue. Number one, I negotiated the Remain in Mexico policy with the Mexican government. We used economic power to bring the Mexican government to the table. We built hundreds of miles of border wall, and despite what's said here today, we reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. And as President of the United States, I can do it again. And the truth is we need to fix a broken immigration system, and I'll do that as well. But first and foremost, a nation without borders is not a nation. And we have to secure the southern border of the United States of America. I know how to do it, and we will do it again. Let me say one other thing about China. Let me say one other thing about China.
Would you negotiate with Congress to give a solution to the problem that Dreamers have right now? They are on a limbo.
Well, let me tell you, I served in Congress for 12 years, although it seemed longer. But you know, something I've done different than everybody on this stage is I've actually secured reform in Congress. You know, Ron, you talk a really good game about cutting spending, but you've increased spending in Florida by 30%. When I was a member of Congress in 2006, right after Hurricane Katrina, Dana, you remember it, we stood our ground. I led House conservatives. We cut $100 billion out of the federal budget. It can be done, but as I said in the last debate, I'll say again, this is no time for on-the-job training. I'm going to be ready on day one to get Congress to step up, secure the southern border of the United States, build a military fitted to our times, and we're going to get spending in Washington, D.C. under control once and for all.
I got mentioned on that one. On the other side of this break, and I propose to go to a break. How will these candidates make America safer as rising crime plagues our cities? Debate night continues in moments.
The Republican presidential debate on the flag is brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation.
.33 here on WZFG The Flag and KTGO Tioga. We've got a 2-minute break here, guys. Who's winning so far? I think I know what the answer is going to be. Scott?
Vivek was winning, but I think that last little temper tantrum wasn't all that good for him. But he was winning. You know who's losing? These questions.
The American people are losing. They're not asking anything that we discussed. Our panel out there said, here's what we want to hear. Instead, we got to waste time on this strike and all this other stuff.
Child care. I don't want the federal government worrying about child care.
Get to the issues. Come on and get control of your debate.
Man.
Yeah, they said they wanted the candidates to go at each other, but what you have when you've got 7 people, all of them desperate to take on the leader who's not theirs, they feel like they got to make their point. It's going to be a tough road tonight, I think, for them to keep order.
Doug Burgum deserves big-time credit because
he jumped in.
He jumped in twice and came with the goods, and contributed something to the debate. I thought he did a great job.
No bumper sticker talk. He said this is what has to happen.
Hasn't been asked a question yet, by the way.
No, he hasn't. Nope. So you got to jump in there and go. I think Nikki Haley has had a good showing again. She has given policy points. She has said, here's my idea. Here's how we're going to do that. I appreciate that. I think Vivek has been the star, though, so far. I think Ron DeSantis started really slow in this one. I think he's got to turn it up the rest of the way. He's got a lot of work to do tonight.
So sleepy.
It's like him and Doug turned their positions around from the last debate.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing he has going for him, he's been vice president of the United States, right? I mean, he's been there, done that. But, boy, he needs to, I don't know, just get a little fire and brimstone going.
All right, here we go, guys. We got 5 seconds. We are back to the debate. More of the second GOP presidential debate.
Nearly 50,000 good-paying jobs. That's one of the ways life is better in North Dakota, thanks to our oil and natural gas industry. People deserve an opportunity to earn a good, honest living. Oil and natural gas are making it possible. With these jobs, thousands of North Dakotans are bringing prosperity home for their families and communities, and will for generations to come. North Dakota's oil and natural gas, advancing the possibilities.
The Republican presidential debate is on the flag, brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation. Join our online watch party for live reaction and commentary.
Welcome back to the Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. Jared Halpert alongside Josh Crossour. The sun is beginning to set here in Southern California. The temperature dropping, but Josh, it is getting hot on that debate stage. And we saw Senator Tim Scott come out in a way that I think may surprise a lot of listeners.
Well, look, we remember from the first debate that Tim Scott did not get into the sparring matches that many of the other candidates did. He certainly had quite the exchange with Vivek Ramaswamy about his investments and businesses in China, which has been one of the vulnerabilities that Ramaswamy has faced in recent days based on that business record. So, Scott, you couldn't hear a whole lot. There was a lot of yelling. There was a lot of back and forth, but that was a big moment.
Well, so the candidates back on stage, back behind their podiums, and we will take you back now to the Republican debate here on Fox News Radio.
And welcome back to the Reagan Library for the second Republican presidential debate. I do want to just remind everyone, there's 1 minute for questions, 3 seconds for a follow-up, and the more you mention each other, that means the fewer questions you're going to get. Okay, so we want to talk about crime. This has been a horrendous problem in our country. The Fox News and others have been covering it. Governor Christie, crime in major cities is striking fear into the hearts of Americans. Just last night, looters took over the streets of Philadelphia. You said in the last debate that you would use U.S. attorneys to prosecute crimes local prosecutors won't. But they are stretched as well, and they could not handle all of the lawlessness, the shoplifting, all the carjackings, the armed robberies. They're all surging. Progressive prosecutors were elected by their constituents, and they can't be fired by a president. So what would you do to end the revolving door of criminality?
Well, look, Dana, the only one on this stage who's done it. For 7 years, I ran the 5th largest office in this country at the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, and we set records for the number of prosecutions that we brought that still have not been broken. And the reason was that we went after the crime that was affecting people's lives. And as president, I will appoint an attorney general and instruct that attorney general that you are to put all the resources that are necessary to bring our cities back under control. The fact is, they will be stretched. There's no doubt about that, but that's what they take the job for, because they love the idea of enforcing the law. We've got to bring law and order back to this country, and not just in our cities. But we need law and order back everywhere. We need law and order back in our suburbs. People are threatened there. We need it in our rural areas. People feel threatened there. And we need it in Washington, D.C. also. And Donald Trump should be here to answer for that, but he's not. And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight. Not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
Oh, that was cheesy. You saved that all night.
Prosecutors in your state, but as governor, as president, you would not have the ability to do that. How do you think about dealing with the root causes of crime, especially this revolving door of the criminals that just get out and come back and commit another crime?
Well, the crime in these cities is one of the strongest signs of the decaying of America. We can't be successful as a country if people aren't even safe to live in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco. Just being in Southern California over the last couple of days, my wife and I have met 3 people who have been mugged on the street, and that would have never happened 10 or 20 years ago. In Florida, we back the blue. We support the men and women of law enforcement. They are keeping us safe. We have a 50-year low in the crime rate. And yes, when I had 2 progressive prosecutors that weren't following the law in Florida, I removed them from their posts, and the people of Florida are safer as a result of it. As president, I will use the Justice Department to bring civil rights cases against all of those left-wing Soros-funded prosecutors. We're not going to let them get away with it anymore. We want to reverse this country's decline. We need to choose law and order over rioting and disorder.
Solid answer.
Subject.
Governor Haley,
there's a nationwide policing shortage. Retirements are up.
See, I want everybody to get that question.
Yeah, no kidding.
Morale is at a record low. 3 years ago, you signed a pledge to support law enforcement. Now, pledges are a nice idea, but what's your actual plan to get more police on our streets?
Well, and I actually did it in South Carolina, too. You know, what we knew in South Carolina was you take care of those who take care of you. We have to start taking care of law enforcement, but it's not just taking care of them with words. It's making sure that you also follow through on what they do. Right now, we have a lot of stolen guns on the street. Well, these law enforcement officers, they arrest these people, and then they go and they're let out the very next day. So law enforcement feels like no one has their back. We have to start prosecuting according to the law. We have to make sure we have the backs of law enforcement, and we have to make sure that we're a country of law and order. But I want to go back to China because I don't think we spent enough time on that. Right now, we have to look at what government's doing to hurt us against China, too. You have a company, U.S. Antibiotics, that produces amoxicillin, the #1 antibiotic that we need. And right now, there is a company in Bristol, Tennessee, that produces that, yet our federal government only gets it from China. We need to be focusing on companies that produce in America and supporting those companies that produce in America, not companies that are helping China.
Governor, we will be talking foreign policy later. Delia?
We were on
Thank
crime.
you, Stuart. We're going to stay in the topic of crime because it affects all of us. Governor Burgum, for the first time ever, a Univision poll found that mass shootings and gun safety are one of the most important issues for Latino voters. Mental health concerns are not unique to the United States, but gun violence is. What is your specific plan to curb gun violence?
Well, first we need to understand is I think that the liberal left seems to be just completely bent on prosecuting law-abiding citizens that are gun owners, because every solution they have to this is take away the Second Amendment rights of Americans, and somehow that's going to solve the problem. But all these cities that we're talking about that you showed the videos of tonight, they have some of the strictest gun laws in the country. Exactly. So we know that that's not what's working. But what we have to do is get back to the core issues about the family. We have to get back to behavioral health and mental health. We've got to get back to actually enforcing the laws these people talked about, and like we've done in North Dakota, where we've got the goal and we're on the track to be the most military-friendly state in the nation. We've got the most military and the most support of what we're doing in terms of law enforcement, because the morale is down because we've been defunding the police, because they've been attacked in the press. The police have become the bad guys when they're the one. There's all these jobs available in America. Why would you be a policeman if people don't even respect them? Every time I see a policeman, the first thing I say is thank you. And so does everybody else in my family and most of the people in our state, because they know we have to respect the people that are out there defending us every single day.
Can I answer the question on mass shootings?
Mr. Ramaswamy, according to Customs and Border Protection, about 90% of fentanyl is seized at official border crossings, and 57% of the smugglers are U.S. citizens. How would you stop fentanyl brought into the country, mostly by U.S. citizens, through ports of entry?
There's two sides to this, and we have to be very honest about it. One is we do have to seal that southern border. Building the wall is not enough. They're building cartel-financed tunnels underneath that wall. Semi-trucks can drive through them. We have to use our own military to seal the Swiss cheese of a southern border. But we also have to be honest. There's a demand-side problem in this country, too, a mental health epidemic. I met family in Iowa. Two parents, Kathy and Derek. They lost their son, Sebastian, 17 years old. He bought Percocet on Snapchat, and then he died. Why did he die? Because it was laced with fentanyl. That is closer to bioterrorism, not a drug overdose. That is poisoning. So it is our job to make sure that never happens. But it's also our job to make sure that 17-year-olds don't turn to Percocet via Snapchat. We have to bring back mental health care in this country, not with pump-in pharmaceuticals, but with faith-based approaches that restore purpose and meaning in the next generation of Americans. Many of them are getting it through social media. And this isn't a Republican point or a Democrat point, but if you're 16 years old or under, you should not be using an addictive social media product, period. This is something that we can both agree on, and we can revive both the mental health of this country while stopping the fentanyl epidemic that will kill more people this year than who died on 9/11, and I refuse to be a passive bystander sitting in the White House like the hollowed out husk of a current president we have. We will step up and address this problem
Another good answer. This guy's
for
good.
Americans and our children.
President encouraging TikTok. Quit encouraging TikTok.
That is why everything he said I agree with. That is why, as Commander-in-Chief, I'm going to use the U.S. military to go after the Mexican drug cartels. They are killing our people. And the stories that I've seen in Florida, we had an infant, 18 months, parents rented an Airbnb. and apparently the people that had rented it before were using drugs. The infant was crawling, the toddler was crawling on the carpet and ingested fentanyl residue and died. Are we just going to sit here and let this happen, this carnage happen in our country? I am not going to do that. So I guarantee you on day one, this border is going to be a day one issue for me as president. We're going to declare it a national emergency. Yes, we'll build the wall. We'll do remain in Mexico. But those Mexican drug cartels are going to be treated like the foreign terrorist organizations that they are.
That's right.
All right, Vice President Pence, we're going to move on to a different issue. Hold on, sir. Vice President Pence.
$5 billion.
Just last month, Vice President Pence, you said if elected, you would repeal all Obamacare mandates. However, you also made that same promise in 2016. And at that time, Trump-Pence had congressional majorities for at least the first 2 years, and you did not deliver on that promise. So Obamacare, right now, it is more popular than ever. Why should Americans trust you, if you become president, to fix that, or is Obamacare here to stay?
Well, first, let me speak to the mass shootings issue, and then I'll answer that question. It's an important one, Dana. Look, I'm someone that believes that justice delayed is justice denied. And as a father of three, as the grandfather of three beautiful little girls, I am sick and tired of these mass shootings happening in the United States of America. And if I'm president of the United States, I'm going to go to the Congress of the United States, and we're going to pass a federal expedited death penalty for anyone involved in a mass shooting so that they will meet their fate in months, not years. It is unconscionable that the Parkland shooter, Ron, is actually going to spend the rest of his life behind bars in Florida. That's not justice.
Question
we
about
have to mete
Obamacare.
out justice and send a message to these would-be killers that you are not going to live out your days behind bars. You're going to meet
that.
justice in this system.
But does that mean Obamacare is here to stay?
Exactly. Answer that question.
Well, thank you for reiterating the question, because I'd love to answer it. Look, I think it's one of the choices here. You know, my former running mate, Donald Trump, actually has a plan to start to consolidate more power in Washington, D.C., consolidate more power in the executive branch. If I'm president of the United States, it's my intention to make the federal government smaller by returning to the states those resources and programs that are rightfully theirs under the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. That means all Obamacare funding, all housing funding, all HHS funding, all of it goes back to the states. We'll shut down the Federal Department of Education. Will allow states to innovate. We're going to revive federalism in America, and states are going to help bring America back.
Obamacare staying, but Stu, go ahead.
May I remind everyone to keep within their time frame so that we can get as many questions in as possible. This question for Governor DeSantis. Over 26 million Americans don't have insurance coverage. Governor DeSantis, 2.5 million of them are in your state. That's worse than the national average. Can Americans trust you on this?
Well, I think this is a symptom of our overall economic decline. Everything has gotten more expensive. You see insurance rates are going through the roof. People that are going to get groceries. I spoke with a woman in Iowa, and she said, you know, for the first time in my life, I'm having to take things out of my grocery cart when I get to the checkout line because the total goes up so quickly. So this is very real, and people are hurting out there. So we've got to address the underlying problem with Bidenomics, the overspending, taking all Biden's rules and regulations. I'm going to throw them in the trash can on day one. You're not going to have to worry about that. We're going to open up all of our energy. We will be energy dominant in this country. That will lower your gas prices. And what we need to do with health care is recognize our health care is putting patients at the back of the bus. We have big pharma, big insurance, and big government, and we need to tackle that and have more power for the people and the doctor-patient relationship.
Governor, why is your record in Florida on insurance worse than the national average?
Our state's a dynamic state. We've got a lot of folks that come. Of course, we've had a population boom. We we also don't have a lot of welfare benefits in Florida. You know, we're basically say this is a field of dreams. You can do well in the state, but we're not going to be like California and have massive numbers of people on government programs without work requirements. We believe you work and you got to do that. And so that goes for all the welfare benefits. And you know what that's done, Stuart? Our unemployment rate is the lowest amongst any big state. We have the highest GDP growth amongst any big state. And even CNBC, no fan of mine, ranked Florida the #1 economy in America.
We're moving on.
On the topic of healthcare, Governor Haley, healthcare is the leading cause of bankruptcy for American families, accounting for 2/3 of all personal bankruptcies. As president, how you protect Americans who get sick from financial ruin?
First of all, how can we be the best country in the world and have the most expensive health care in the world? We have an issue. My mom was in the hospital, and when she was in the hospital, they tried to bring her a couple of Tylenol, and she said, I don't need it. And they said, honey, go ahead and take it because you're paying for it anyway. Why is it that when we got the bill, the insurance company and the hospital negotiated the bill for her without her having anything to do with it? When I am president, we will break all of it, from the insurance company to the hospitals to the doctor's offices to the PBMs to the pharmaceutical companies. We will make it all transparent, because when you do that, you will realize that's what the problem is. Second thing is you've got to deal with tort law. The doctors don't give you the 10 tests because they want to. It's because of the 90% chance they'll get sued. And then we need to bring competition back to healthcare, get rid of certificate of need systems, and make sure that they can compete. We have to put the patient in the driver's seat. They've been in the back seat for way too long. And once we give the patient the ability to decide their health care, deciding which plan they want, that is when we will see magic happen. But we're going to have to make every part of the industry open up and show us where their warts are, because they all have them, and we need to fix this on behalf of the American people.
And that's what we did.
All right, Burgum.
Governor Burgum, let's go. In 30 seconds.
Well, yes, we're not talking about the real problem ever. We talk about why do we have the most expensive health care in the world? It's because the federal government got involved the same way they did with EVs, and they said, we're going to subsidize a particular kind of software back in 2008 under Obama, and they said, hey, we're going to do this. It's going to make everyone more productive. All of you that are watching have been to a doctor's office when the doctor's got his back to you and their hands on a keyboard. The only industry in the world that's ever absorbed $1 trillion of IT and became less productive, they saw less patients per day, is U.S. healthcare, because they were subsidizing a certain kind of technology. It wasn't about improving healthcare. It was about picking winners and losers. Every time the federal government's involved, whether it's higher education, healthcare, or now the auto industry, things get more expensive and less competitive.
That was a great transition, because we are going to move on the future of education in America. What's the government's role in finding a way forward? The second Republican debate rolls on from Simi Valley.
And inform.
All right, you are listening to the second GOP presidential debate here on AM 1100 The Flag, 92.3 FM, KTGO 1090.
Debate on The Flag is brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation.
All right, Scott Hennen, Steve Hallstrom, Jay Thomas. Are we going to send Scott?
There was
out
a
to
lot
the
to digest and all that. Who's winning? Who's losing?
I do not have an opinion to share at this time, sir.
Okay, well, how about you? Who's winning?
It's a pretty tight race.
I mean, you enjoying this? Is it boring? Are they asking the right questions? What do you think?
I'm enjoying it, and they're asking the right questions, and they're giving very solid answers. So, I mean, it's like walking into a candy store. There's a lot of good options, and it's hard to choose.
I like that, the candy analogy. Who's winning this debate?
I don't really know yet.
A little early. Who do you think's winning?
Well, I think DeSantis has made some good points, and he's kept himself out of this schoolyard fray that's really not doing anybody any good.
All right, how's Doug Burgum doing?
He seems to be doing a little better than the last one.
Kind of inching his way in there, right? What do you like so far?
There's been some good conversation, but I'd like to see them shutting down the fluff and holding them more accountable for answering the questions.
Highlight?
Oh, I got nothing yet. I feel like DeSantis is doing all right.
Interesting. You know, what's interesting about this is I think the questions have been a little bit lame. Show of hands, how many people think the questions have been subpar? Yeah, most of you. I mean, we gotta pick up this game a little bit and get going. One more quick comment. What do you think?
I think they're more important. The questioners think their questions are far more important than the answers the people are giving.
Not a good look. Not a good look. All right, back to the debate. We'll check in with our listening audience. Watching it live coming up.
Schools, roads, and flood protection. These are the important local projects being funded across North Dakota, thanks to our state's oil and natural gas. In fact, North Dakota's oil and natural gas industry pays billions of dollars in taxes every year. It provides big benefits to our counties and communities, addressing local needs and making life better for generations. North Dakota's oil and natural gas, advancing the possibilities.
The Republican presidential debate is On the Flag, brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation. Join our online watch party for live reaction and commentary.
Welcome back to the Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. Jared Halpern alongside Josh Crossour. And before the debate continues, Josh, I guess my question for you is, did you have Donald Duck on your debate bingo card?
Maybe the highlight from Governor Christie so far at the debate. But look, we knew Christie was going to use a lot of his time going after the Republican frontrunner who's not on stage, Donald Trump. I don't know if it's going to really make a whole lot of impact in the trajectory of this race. Look, but I do think it's notable that in the opening round of the debate, it was just Christie and Ron DeSantis going after Trump. And that is DeSantis' playbook at this debate has not just been to contrast his record, but to actually take a shot at the front runner in this campaign.
Let me ask you about the absence of the front runner, right? I mean, how big a deal is that as we move forward? He's not participated now in the first two Republican debates. We've talked about how hard it's going to be to qualify for subsequent debates. You're going to have a smaller field, and you still may not have the front runner there.
I mean, to be the front runner, to win the nomination, you've got to go after the front runner. And again, we haven't seen many of these Republicans even trying to draw contrasts. You know, Christie had the most memorable soundbite with the Donald Duck comparison, but I think Ron DeSantis has done himself quite a bit of good. Maybe stylistically, he hasn't. He can be a little dour. He hasn't smiled a whole lot. But on substance, he's really, I think, scored a few points in talking about his own record and contrasting it with Donald Trump's.
And so we will move on to education, something that has been a big part of a lot of the stump speeches that you've heard from these Republicans on stage. All 7 of them now back behind their podiums, and we will return you to this debate stage. This is Democracy 2024 on Fox News Radio.
And we are back live at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in the Air Force One Pavilion for the second Republican debate. And let's get back to our questions. Governor Haley, American students, they are in academic trouble. They have lower scores in math and reading. There's chronic absenteeism. That's at record highs. And this has even been called education homicide. You say school choice is the answer, but South Carolina, your home state, still has not enacted universal school choice, and even the current expansion won't be fully implemented until 2027. Parents can't wait 4 years for a fix. So what would you do right now?
Well, and school choice isn't the only answer, but I'll tell you it's not out of a lack of trying that we didn't try and get school choice in South Carolina. What I'll tell you, first of all, is we have to acknowledge the fact that 67% of our 8th graders are not proficient in reading or math. Over 80% of our 8th graders aren't proficient in history or civics. And recently they came out and said our 12 and 13-year-olds are scoring at the lowest levels they've been scoring in reading and math in decades. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure we catch our kids back up. We have to make sure they can read. A child that can't read by 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate high school. We need to do reading remediation. We need complete transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. We need to make sure that we have school choice so that there's competition. We need to move all the programs from the federal government down to the states and let states decide what education looks like in their states. Right. And we need to start building things in America again. Let's put vocational classes back in our high schools skills, and let's get our kids building the things that we know that we can make. When we start to focus on that and really bring in that parental involvement, that's when we'll start to see a difference. But we've got to get parents back included. We've got to quit spending time on this DEI and CRT
this is a perfect
and instead
question
focus
for her.
on financial literacy,
Talking to the moms.
on digital literacy, and on making sure that our kids know what they need to do to have the jobs of the next generation.
On the subject of education,
It's a winning answer.
On the subject of education, a question for Governor Christie. Students in your state are getting high marks on their report cards, but minorities are not doing well with math and reading. Black and Hispanic students averaging 29 points lower than white students in New Jersey. Would you address minorities first?
You have to address all students. And look, in our state, Stuart, frankly, before I was governor, that gap was close to 50%. And what we did was institute more charter schools.
That's a terrible
and more
question.
Renaissance
Nobody would want to have to
and
answer
more
that
public
question.
School choice in New Jersey with innovative solutions in cities like Camden, where now we took what was the worst school districts in America during my time, and we have now increased that by nearly 40% in terms of their proficiency. It can be done when you give people choice. But let's tell the truth to everybody about what this is. This public school system is no longer run by the public. It is run by the teachers' unions in this country. Randy Weingarten and her crew are absolutely strangling. They are taking the worst of their members and defending them rather than advocating for our kids. And when you have the President of the United States sleeping with a member of the teachers union, there is no chance that you could take the stranglehold away from the teachers union every day. They have an advocate inside the White House every day for the worst of their teachers, not for our students to be the best they can be. A President of the United States has to take on the teachers union. I did it in New Jersey, and I will do it as President of the United States.
Governor DeSantis, I have a question for you. Governor DeSantis, I have a question for you.
Are you guys having trouble seeing me?
Florida's new Black history curriculum says, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. You have said slaves develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of it. But many are still hurt. For descendants of slaves, this is personal. What is your message to them?
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated by Kamala Harris. We are not going to be doing that. Second of all, that was written by descendants of slaves. These are great Black history scholars, so we need to stop playing these games. Here's the deal. Our country's education system is in decline because it's focused on indoctrination, denying parents' rights. Florida represents the revival of American education. We're ranked #1 in the nation in education by U.S. News and World Report. My wife and I, we have a 6-, 5-, and 3-year-old. This is personal to us. We didn't just talk about universal school choice, we enacted universal school choice. We didn't just talk about Parents' Bill of Rights, we enacted the Parents' Bill of Rights. We eliminated critical race theory, and we now have American civics and the Constitution in our schools in a really big way, just like President Reagan asked for in his farewell address back in 1989. Florida is showing how it's done. We're standing with parents, and our kids are benefiting.
Senator Scott, you oppose to these new standards. What is your message for Governor DeSantis?
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out. America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth because we faced our demons in the mirror and made a decision. So often we think that all the issues, you talked about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one American family. Our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are.
Thank you.
We are the greatest country
Good answer.
on God's green earth. And frankly, the city on the hill needs a brand new leader. And I'm asking for your vote.
I'm going to have a question for you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Over 10.7 million students in over 18,000 public schools nationwide have the ability to change their identity without parental notification. Governor Christie told Stewart last week that he would pass a federal law to protect parental rights. Would you try to do the same?
I have to be very clear about this. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder. We have to acknowledge the truth of that for what it is. I met two young women early in this campaign.
Specifically on parental rights in schools.
Parents have the right to know. And you know what the hypocrisy of this is? Even New Hampshire failed to actually get past a piece of legislation here. The very people who say that this increases the risk of suicide are also the ones saying that parents don't have the right to know about that increased risk of suicide. And I'm sorry, it is not compassionate to affirm a kid's confusion. That is not compassion, that is cruelty. I met two young women, Chloe and Katie, early in this campaign, who are in their 20s, now regret getting double mastectomies and a hysterectomy. One of them will never have children. And the fact that we allowed that to happen in this country is barbaric.
Yep.
So I will ban genital mutilation or chemical castration under the age of 18, and parents have absolutely
would you
the
try
right.
to pass a federal law that says parents should have that right?
We are going to require states absolutely have to follow that through.
Governor
We
Burgum just to
stand
follow
for
up on
parental
this
rights.
because
Yes.
you in your state you do not have a law that says parents can't be notified, but you want to be president.
Doug's like,
Would
dang
you
it,
try
why are
to
you
pass a
asking me
federal
this
law that say
question?
parents
Let me
have
talk about
that
energy.
right?
I think this is a state's issue, but I do want to say something because all night long we've been talking about issues about how it's broken in Washington, and I respect all of the people on the stage here for their 100+ years of public service. Thank you. But the reason why we're not talking about education or health care or safety being a problem in North Dakota is because we have a business leader. I've got more experience as a business leader than I think this whole group combined. I know I've created more jobs than everybody else on stage, thousands of high-paying jobs that have real meaning. So as a business leader, you come in and you treat the taxpayer like a customer. So in North Dakota, instead of fighting with the teachers' unions, we actually created a K-12 coordinating council. Everybody gets in the room and the customer is the student.
But you do understand that this is an issue that many people in America really are concerned about, worried about parents and notification in schools.
Yes, and that's why we have 50 platforms of innovation. That's why we have states. There are certain things the federal government is supposed to do. It's not the Department of Education. That needs to be assembled. We got to move it back to states. Do what we did in North Dakota. Instead of like, oh, here's a choice school and here's an old school, the old way with the teachers union, the kids are trapped. We made every school in North Dakota an innovation school. Every school got out from under the red tape and the things that help teach the values that we're trying to get, like 4-H, like FFA, like Boy Scouts. They can get credit for all of that stuff. And by the way, North Dakota is now at the top of the median SAT scores in the country right now.
Vice President Pence, the Department of Homeland Security warns that violence against LGBTQ+ people is on the rise and intensifying. According to a recent study, members of that community are 9 times more likely to be victims of violent hate crimes. As president, how would you protect this community from violent attacks and discrimination?
Well, as President of the United States, I'll stand up for the safety and the civil liberties of every American from every background. And I want the American people to know that. But I want to answer the question as well, Dana, that you just asked Doug Burgum. Because by way of full disclosure, Chris, you mentioned the president's situation. My wife isn't a member of the teachers union, but I got to admit, I've been sleeping with a teacher for 38 years. And so full disclosure. Look, education is a state and local function. The state of Indiana had one of the very first school choice programs in the country. And when I was governor of the state of Indiana, we doubled it. And as to your question, Dana, let's be very, very clear. When the Linn-Mar Community Schools in Iowa had a policy where you had to have a permission slip from your parents to get a Tylenol, but you could get a gender transition plan without notifying your parents. I weighed in with a foundation. That's not bad policy. That's crazy. We're going to stand up for the rights of parents, and we're going to pass a federal ban on transgender chemical or surgical surgery anywhere in the country. We've got to protect our kids from this radical gender ideology agenda, and we've got to empower parents at the state level with the ability to choose where their kids go to school, whether it's public, private, parochial, or homeschool. You empower parents, and our schools will straighten up and reflect our values.
Best
and
answer from
focus
Pence
on
tonight.
The basics faster
Best
than you
answer
could
from him.
possibly imagine.
Next subject.
Can I just say one thing?
China is investing. If you talk over everybody, we lose time. China is investing heavily in their tech companies. $280 billion every year on semiconductor research and development. That is one CHIPS Act per year. Governor DeSantis, you say companies like Google and Meta have too much power. Doesn't going after them give China an edge?
No, I think you look at how our societies develop. They have huge amount of power over our society. They've cracked down on free speech. We're not saying you don't want them to do business, but you want it to be a free market. And right now they're monopolies. But this issue of China, I think, is really going to be fundamental. We have subcontracted out so much of our national needs to the CCP. We rely on them for a whole host of issues. We need to reshore and we need to decouple all those important industries. We need to get that back in the United States. They are our top geopolitical adversary by a country mile. Xi Jinping's got huge ambitions, not only in the Asia Pacific, but as you mentioned earlier, in our region. But ultimately, we've got to beat them on the economy. And so that's what we'll do as President of the United States.
Governor Christie, I wanted to follow up on this because 22% of American workers fear their jobs will be lost to a robot. And you said in the past that the free market is the way to go. Would you retrain workers who lose a job to artificial intelligence, and to do what?
Well, look, what I think artificial intelligence offers us is an extraordinary opportunity to expand well beyond the productivity that we have now, and to have Americans be able to be involved in that revolution, Dana. You know, each time we have shown incredible innovation and progress in this country. What we've done with it is to expand all kinds of new, even unthought of opportunities for folks. Yes, we have to do retraining for folks who lose some of their jobs, and we should be doing that. And we should have more training available both at the county college level and the local level for people to be able to access it. So yes, I would be in favor of that. But this is a much bigger issue than that. We can't be afraid of innovation. America has been the great innovator of this world over the last 250 years, a technological innovator, a manufacturing innovator, and a freedom and governmental innovator. And that's why America has to continue to stand strong in the world, pro-innovation, pro-progress. And I will tell you this, as President of the United States, what I will do is to make sure that every innovator in this country gets the government the hell off its back and out of its pocket so that it can innovate and bring great new inventions to our country that will make everybody's lives better.
Mr. Ramaswamy, TikTok is banned on government-issued devices because of its ties to the Chinese government. Yet you joined TikTok after dinner with boxer and influencer Jake Paul. Should the commander-in-chief be so easily persuaded by an influencer?
So the answer is I have a radical idea for the Republican Party. We need to win elections. And part of how we win elections is reaching the next generation of young Americans where they are. So when I get into office, I've been very clear. Kids under the age of 16 should not be using addictive social media. We're only going to ever get to declaring independence from China, which I favor, if we actually win. So while the Democrats are running rampant, reaching the next generation 3-1, there's exactly one person in the Republican Party which talks a big game about reaching young people, and that's me. And let me level with all of you. I'm the new guy here, and so I know I have to earn your trust. What do you see? You see a young man who's in a bit of a hurry, maybe a little ambitious, bit of a know-it-all, it seems at times. I'm here to tell you, no, I don't know it all. I will listen. I will have the best people, the best and brightest in this country, whatever age they are, advising me. We will be probably many of the people on this stage included. That's how I built my companies. I want to be challenged. I want people who disagree with me. That's what makes America great, because we're not a perfect nation. We're founded on the pursuit of perfection. That is what makes America great. And that is why we will end it once we win this election.
I have to jump. I have to jump in here. I'm sorry.
Get in there, Doug. Get in there.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say. Because I can't believe that here you've got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 150 million people are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can get text messages, they can get all of these things.
This is very important for our party.
Exactly what they're doing.
This is very important for our party, and I'm going to say
you've gone and you've helped China make medicines in China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous for all of us. You went and you were in business with the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million. We can't trust you. We can't trust you. We can't have
she knows how to get at him, doesn't she?
Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 15 seconds.
I think,
Burgum, get in there.
You have 15 seconds, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Thank you. I think we would be better served as a Republican Party if we're not sitting here hurling personal insults and actually have a legitimate debate about policy following Reagan's 11th Commandment in his honor. And the answer is that is what actually makes our country strong. And I believe in these people. These are good people on the stage. They disagree, but let's have a legitimate disagreement. That's what I would say.
Stuart, can we get back to the question? The
no,
question
we
was
cannot.
on technology.
Governor DeSantis,
There's
I'm
one
going
person
straight
on this stage that has a career in
we will have to cut your mic, and I don't want to do that. I don't. So, Governor DeSantis, let me go to you. Experts say President Putin has ordered assassinations across Europe, cheated on arms control treaties with the U.S., and seeks to work with China to force our decline. President Reagan believed that if you want to prevent a war, you better be prepared to fight one. Today, the Republican Party is at odds over aid to Ukraine. The price tag so far is $76 billion. But is it in our best interest to degrade Russia's military for less than 5% of what we pay annually on defense, especially when there are no U.S. soldiers in the fight?
It's in our interest to end this war, and that's what I will do as president. We are not going to have a blank check. We will not have U.S. troops, and we're going to make the Europeans do what they need to do. But they've sent money to pay bureaucrats' pensions and salaries and funding small businesses halfway around the world. Meanwhile, our own country is being invaded. We don't even have control of our own territory. We have got to defend the American people before we even worry about all these other things. And I watch these guys in Washington, D.C., and they don't care about the American people. They don't care about the fentanyl deaths. They don't care about the communities being overrun because of this border. They don't care about the Mexican drug cartels. So as Commander-in-Chief, I will defend this country's sovereignty.
But it's not a territorial dispute. It's never been a territorial dispute.
And 90% of the resources that we send over to Ukraine is guaranteed as a loan. It is not 90% of the money that we send over there is loan. Well, we can talk about this, but at the end of the day, 90% of the money that we send over there is actually in the form of a loan.
We understand.
It's not actually not be paid by Ukraine. It's paid by the NATO, our NATO allies.
We're not getting that much back.
I think it's a really good topic too. But I will say,
it's the first I heard that.
Debate the fact.
You know, it was a loan.
Our
There's a
national
never getting that money.
vital interest is in degrading the Russian military. By degrading the Russian military, we actually keep our homeland safer, we keep our troops at home, and we all understand Article 5 of NATO.
We have to level with the American people.
I thought you said something about waiting until your turn to talk. So hold on. So at the end of the day, I'm going to finish my. I'll be happy to debate this.
And I'll respond.
I'll look forward to this one right now. So at the end of the day, when you think about the fact that if you want to keep American troops at home, an attack on NATO territory would bring us and our troops in. By degrading the Russian military, we reduce, if not eliminate, an attack on NATO territory.
Finish that exchange. We have to level with the American people. We have to level with the American people on this issue. The reality is
We
just
are
because
leveling with
just
the
because
American
Putin is not Putin's an evil dictator does not mean that Ukraine is good. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties.
A win
that has
for
actually
Russia is a
that
win
is not
for
true.
China.
We're driving
a win
Russia.
For Russia
excuse
is a
me.
win for China.
Excuse me, Nick. You'll have
but
a chance.
I forgot you like China. That's why you're
you'll
okay
have
with
you'll
it.
have a chance in just a moment.
Yeah.
The hurling personal insults isn't helping. China is the real enemy, and we're driving Russia further into China's arms. We need a reasonable peace plan to end this, especially this is a country whose president just last week
Vivek,
was
if
hailing
you let
a Nazi in
Putin
his own
have
ranks.
Ukraine, that's a green light to China to take Taiwan.
We need a
Peace
big time
comes through strength.
We need a reasonable plan to peace.
Governor Christie.
The Communist Party of China is the real enemy.
Governor Christie, Governor Christie, President Biden's first 2 years have brought China, Russia, and Iran closer together. Are we focused too much on Ukraine and not enough on this threat from the New World Order?
No, they're all connected, Stuart. They're all connected. The Chinese are paying for the Russian war in Ukraine. The Iranians are supplying more sophisticated weapons, and so are the North Koreans now as well, with the encouragement of the Chinese. The naivete on this stage from some of these folks is extraordinary. Look, I understand people want to go and talk to Putin. Guess what? So did George W. Bush. So did Barack Obama. So did Donald Trump. And so did Joe Biden when he said a small invasion wouldn't be so bad. Every one of them has been wrong. And the fact of the matter is, we need to say right now that the Chinese-Russian alliance is something we have to fight against, and we are not going to solve it by going over and cuddling up to Vladimir Putin. Look, Donald Trump said Vladimir Putin was brilliant and a great leader. This is the person who is murdering people in his own country, and now not having enough blood, he's now going to Ukraine to murder innocent civilians and kidnap 20,000 children. And let me tell you, if you think that's where it's going to stop, if we give him any of Ukraine, next will be Poland. This is a guy who said, wait, one sec, this is a guy in 1991 who said that was
Christie's
the darkest
best
moment in
moment.
world history when the Soviet Union fell. Listen, everybody, he wants to put the old band back together, and only America can stop it. And when I'm president, we will.
Governor Burgum, I want to get to Governor Burgum. He hasn't had a chance. I have a question I think you're going to really like, or at least you have experience
Let's
in
hope.
it. And we need to talk about America's farmers, because there is a foreign policy connection here. The U.S. and China are in this fierce economic competition. It's hurting American businesses, and there is blowback against American farmers because China then targets them in retaliation. How would you, as president, protect American farmers and ranchers from that kind of retaliation from a foreign government like China?
Well, first of all, we've got the best farmers and ranchers in the world right here in America. If they have a level playing field, they can outcompete anyone in the world. But this is part of the larger issue that we're talking about here, which is we're in a Cold War with China. The Biden administration won't admit that. But we're also in an economic war through what we're doing with agriculture and energy. And we're also in a war with them relative to cyber war. We get attacked every day in North Dakota, every state, every school district, our tribes, all being attacked every day by either China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea. And now we've got a Biden administration whose whole policy is appeasement. They're out there, creating the world, making it less safe. $6 billion they traded for 5 people. They've just now set a price on anyone's head who's a tourist from America, who's a student from America, for kidnapping. If you want more kidnapping, put a price on it. And then they're also helping Iran get to have more closer to nuclear weapon, which pushes all of the Middle East closer to China and Russia. The whole thing is absurd. And then, of course, we're going to give Ukraine to Russia, and then we're going to give Taiwan to China, and think that's a foreign policy. That will make our nation less successful, make us more poor. And at the core of all that is energy policy, because China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day. They're the largest importer in the world, and we've had 4 cabinet members from the Biden administration there this summer, and none of them talked about U.S. energy. The first one to go to each of those countries was Kerry, to talk about the folly of the climate policy, which is making the world less stable. It's empowering dictators. It's not about climate change that we need worried about. It's about the Biden climate policies that are actually the existential threat to America's future.
Thank you.
Can I speak about
Governor Haley, Mexico's president called who supports sending U.S. military into the country, quote, scoundrels. Mexico is the United States' most important trade partner and border security. You say you will send special operations to attack the cartels in Mexico. So, this means boots on the ground, Drone strikes?
It means special operations. It's how we deal with our terrorists. And what you need to do is understand that Mexico's not being a good partner if we lost 75,000 Americans last year. Mexico's not being a good partner if they're letting the cartels get away with what they're getting away with. What we will do is we will make sure that we send in our special operations and we will take out the cartels, we'll take out their operations, we'll take out anything that's doing it. But we're going to go after China because China is the one sending the fentanyl in the first place. And we will end all normal trade relations until China stops sending fentanyl. And then we'll do the special operations and we'll get it from both sides. This is where President Trump went wrong. He focused on trade with China. He didn't focus on the fact that they were buying up our farmland. He didn't focus on the fact that they were killing Americans. He didn't focus on the fact that they were stealing $600 billion in intellectual property. He didn't focus on the fact that they put a spy base off our shores in Cuba. They didn't focus enough on the fact that all of our law enforcement drones in America are Chinese, and we've got all these little surveillance cells. We need to start focusing on what keeps Americans safe. That hasn't happened in a long time. As your president, I will make sure every American is safe, and we'll do whatever it takes to make that happen.
All right. I want to get to Senator Scott. You're all auditioning for the job as President of the United States. You want to earn these votes. But the world's problems land in the Oval Office. During the presidential debates in the year 2000, neither Al Gore nor George W. Bush was asked about al-Qaeda. Yet, just 1 year later, al-Qaeda's attack on September 11th claimed nearly 3,000 lives. And the farther we get from September 11th, the closer we are to September 10th. Senator Scott, you have no executive branch experience. What has prepared you to protect the nation from a major man-made national security crisis?
Well, one of the things I've had the good fortune of doing is serving on committees in the United States Senate, like the Senate Armed Services Committee. I'm on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, also on the Finance Committee and the Banking Committee. Talk about addressing the issue of fentanyl. I've written the legislation, passed it through the Banking Committee and the Senate that would freeze the assets and sanction the accounts of the Mexican cartels. There are weapons that we have within the arsenal that I was able to get past 23-0 in the polarizing Senate as it is. I've also understood without question the fact that if you look at the details before 9/11, there was information and intelligence that was available that suggested an attack was coming. Having the right intelligence partners with us is key to making sure that we prevent the next 9/11 from ever happening. Having that experience for the last 10 years is really important in getting the job done.
30 seconds to you, Mr. Pence.
Well, I think you asked a question about executive experience. I think it's vitally important. And I stand before you today as a candidate for president because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. And you hear the fire on the stage tonight. You hear the fire in all of our voices. And it's because Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. This is a time for those of us that have the experience, the tested experience, and a commitment to the conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan brought forward in this party of a strong national defense, standing with our allies, standing up to our enemies, supporting limited government and traditional values, need to step forward.
Understood.
Because, frankly, our party does face a time for choosing, as they said at the top of this debate, whether we're going to stand on the foundation of that conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan poured, or whether we're going to follow the siren song of populism unmoored to conservative principles. I'm the most experienced, most qualified, and most consistent conservative in this field, and I'm ready to lead America at home and abroad on day one.
Time for choosing to go to a break. Ilya.
We need to go to a commercial break. Reagan built a coalition that lasted decades. Can any of these candidates do the same? We'll take that up when the debate continues.
Does anybody else think this is lame-o?
Kind of a yawner?
I just get bothered by the format. They find these kind of gotcha questions. Ron DeSantis, in your state, this one thing happened, it didn't look good for you, and it's one subject.
Well,
rather than giving him a chance to talk about the entire issue, then they'll go to another candidate with another kind of pigeonhole question. Then they'll go to somebody else for a big, broad question. It's like, let everybody answer the big, broad questions that really bring us to this debate tonight.
And then Bergen wanted to jump on. Of course, what's his background? Tech. And he doesn't even get to jump on that. It's just, this thing is all over the place, guys. I'm getting nothing out of this. There is no solid winner tonight. There's really no solid loser on that stage tonight because of the way that, like you said, Steve Hallstrom, they're bouncing these questions around. I'm just sitting here like I should just throw up a solitaire game and have some fun because I'm getting nothing out of this.
Well, I think Doug Burgum tonight has moved the ball down the field. I don't know how much, but we've gotten to hear more from him about the things that he knows about than we did the last time. Mm-hmm. Now, Dana Perino shut him down one time, but he's in the game and he's becoming noticeable. And for him, I think that means that there's a little bit of a victory. He had in one question, one answer, he had ag, tech, China, Russia, and energy, all in the same answer. He just didn't get deep enough to really do much good with it. But at least people are like, you know what? That guy knows his stuff.
He's getting the applauses. And also, again, I'm following the Drudge poll at just under 12,000 votes. And Doug's actually not doing bad in the poll.
Nikki Haley is winning this debate tonight, I believe. Vivek a second place, I would say, right now.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Scott's going to talk to our...
Now, what folks think out here, as a matter of fact, Justin, who's winning?
I would say, I'm going to give you a few, but I would say Vivek, Haley, and DeSantis. Doug could be in it, but again, he's just not getting the time. He's trying, but they've cut him off a few times. The losers, I mentioned before this started, Christie's got to go. I forgot, Pence has got to go. He makes me sick. He rides Trump's coattails when it suits him, and he rips him when it doesn't. And then I would say also Scott, he's well-spoken, but, he'd be a good VP for somebody. And as I think you said on one of your shows, might be a good church elder. He's a good guy, but he doesn't belong on that stage.
Disappointed so far?
A little bit. I think, as I said earlier, the questioners are more interested in their own questions than allowing more people to respond to those single questions they throw out.
Who's the winner so far?
I don't know. I sort of agree with what the first guy said in terms of almost spot on with every single person. Exactly what I was thinking. So DeSantis, Vivek, Haley doing pretty well.
All right, let's go over here and get a few more takes on what you've seen so far. Andrew, who's winning?
I still think that Vivek's bringing the most energy. I think that Governor Burgum has just had tough luck as far as getting the right window to speak, and he took it for himself where he could, and they just weren't giving it to him, So he's trying to assert himself, but they didn't give him the time.
Who's winning?
I guess I'd kind of agree with Haley. I think she's kind of doing a good job, but I don't know. I think the American people are the ones that are losing this one.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sleeper, and some of the questions have been really suspect. Who do you like so far?
I'm liking Nikki Haley. I'm liking Ron DeSantis. I'm struggling with the fascination with Chris Christie on that stage. It's like every other question, Governor Christie, what do you think? And it's like, what? Why?
Sounds great. We'll check in with you after the debate for the final say. Back to California.
Welcome back to the Republican primary debate here at the Reagan Library. We've got a lot more issues to cover and a lot more questions to go. So let's dive right back in. We're here in California, where gas is nearing $6 a gallon. Oil is close to $100 a barrel again. You say, drill, baby, drill. But the courts won't let you. Mr. Ramaswamy, how would you bring down prices without immediate drilling?
Well, look, I think that we do have to run through the courts and get through that administrative state to make sure we're using the natural resources here at home. But here's the other thing that we can do that's easy.
It would take forever, Mr. Ramaswamy.
And it addresses the national debt as well as brings down prices. Put people back to work. We are using taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home than to go to work. That is wrong. That contributes to our supply chain crisis. It contributes to inflation. That's the easiest way to unlock this economy. And here's the other thing. We have to put the Federal Reserve back in its place. This is an agency that has gone rogue. So in January 2026, when I have the opportunity as our next commander-in-chief, we will have a new chairman of the Federal Reserve who places priority on dollar stability. And then most importantly, send packing 75% of the administrative state, reduce the federal employee headcount by 75%, rescind 50% of unconstitutional federal regulations that are shackling businesses, both large and small. I've offered a very clear, practical plan to do it. That's how we unleash the economy.
Finally, first time we
That's how
talked about
revive
lowering,
the integrity
lessening
of a
government, reducing
three-branch
government.
constitutional republic,
Vice
rather
President-
than this technocracy and
Vice
aristocracy
President
in the
Pence,
administrative
your
state.
response, please.
I think one of the signature accomplishments of our administration was in just a few short years, we achieved energy independence. We became a net exporter of energy for the first time in 75 years. But on day one, Joe Biden declared a war on energy, which was no surprise because when Joe Biden ran for president, he said he was going to end fossil fuels. Yep. And they've been working overtime to do that ever since. If I'm president of the United States, we're going to open up federal lands. We're going to unleash American energy. We're going to have an all-of-the-above energy strategy. And I have a plan that actually would not only reclaim energy independence, but in 2006, America lost our position as the leading energy producer on Earth. I believe in the next 10 years, with the right policies and experienced leadership in the White House, we can reclaim our role as the leading energy producer on Earth, and that'll grow the American economy for generations to come.
No applause.
Reaction to that, please.
Sleeper.
Leading an energy state, could I answer the energy question?
No, Governor Haley.
Oh
So,
my
the
God.
first thing I'll say is what I saw at the United Nations is energy security is national security. We need a president that understands we have to partner with our producers and make sure that we have their backs. What you don't need is a president who is against energy independence. Ron DeSantis is against fracking. He's against drilling. He's been against, you did it. He always talks about what happens on day one. You better watch out, because what happens on day two is when you're in trouble. Day two in Florida, you banned fracking, you banned offshore drilling, you did it on federal lands, and you took green subsidies that you didn't have to take.
Governor DeSantis, you were
It is
mentioned.
true.
You have
Look
the
at
right to
day two.
respond.
Wow.
30 seconds.
Yeah. I just did a plan out in West Texas for American energy dominance. We're going to choose Midland over Moscow. We're going to choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we're going to choose Bakken over Beijing, and we are going to lower your gas prices. We are going to get that job done because it's important for our national security, it's important for jobs, and that's one of the best ways to drive down inflation.
Governor DeSantis. Governor DeSantis is
the only answer that because this is
Governor
ridiculous.
DeSantis,
Get in there,
this
Doug.
question is for you.
Our voters enacted a constitutional
You
amendment
banned it before
that
they
doesn't
voted.
allow. No, it's not true.
You banned it before they voted, and not
you're-
only that,
you're not.
fracking
You're not.
wasn't-
You're,
they didn't
she's
vote
just
on
totally
fracking.
wrong. They voted it
Check
in.
it.
That's
Check
what we
it.
did. Onshore, we do it in Florida. We don't have as much as maybe West Texas, but we do it. But that was a constitutional amendment. So that's just wrong. And let's just get real here. My plan will get the job done.
You
We are
banned
going to
it
be
before
energy
the
dominant,
voters
and that's
even
what's going to
voted,
happen.
and the voters didn't even vote on fracking, and you banned
We
fracking.
are moving on with this question for Governor DeSantis. Governor,
As the only leader of an energy state,
we cannot talk over each other. We must respect each other's
energy
time.
state, I demand
My
that we
apologies for
answer
that.
this question.
I'm ready, Stuart.
Governor
Let's do it.
DeSantis, this is your question. The Biden administration is hell-bent on student loan forgiveness.
Oh, my goodness.
But you say colleges should be on the hook when graduates cannot pay their debt. How does that address the cost of college? The cost of college itself?
Because the colleges are going to have to make a decision. Do we expand the gender studies department, knowing some of those graduates may not have great learning opportunities? No, they're going to focus on the things that really matter. They're going to make different choices. They're going to try to graduate people in 4 years. I also just want to come back to something Dana asked last segment about 9/11, because I was just at the 9/11 memorial with the families. My wife and I were invited. It's very touching to be there, and it affected my life because I ended up joining the military as a result of that. I had been a blue-collar kid, minimum wage in Dunedin, Florida. I ended up getting through Yale and Harvard Law School and somehow came out more conservative than when I went in, and that is not easy to do. Had a lot of opportunities to make money, but I wanted to serve, and I'll never forget coming back on the plane from Iraq, landing in Coronado, California, North Island, and feeling that breeze off the Pacific Ocean and say, you know what? I am lucky to have been born an American, and I think being able to serve, and I'll be the first president elected since 1988 who's actually served overseas in a war, I think that's going to help me as commander-in-chief to know how you see these issues and understand that there are real lives at stake for people that wear the uniform.
And we know that Governor Haley's husband is serving right now as well, and we thank him for that. Senator Scott, the national debt has nearly doubled in your time.
Put in a, what was that? Put in a
Is that
plug
mere
for
19%?
Haley's husband.
If this were a business, You'd probably all be fired in Washington, but you're here tonight looking for a promotion. In 2013, Governor Haley hired you for the Senate. I'd like you to tell her why you should be promoted to CEO of the nation instead of her.
Certainly. One of the things I'd say is if you look at our national debt of $33 trillion, I would love to have an opportunity to have this country pass a balanced budget amendment. That would constrain the spending in Washington in the same fashion that it does in every state in our nation, number one. Number two, if you want to actually reduce our national debt, you have to grow our economy. In order to grow our economy, you need to create about 10 million jobs to grow our economy at 5%. You can do that in 3 specific sectors. Number one, the energy sector. We could create between 3 and 3.5 million jobs if we unleashed all of our energy resources. America is we're the richest country if you combine coal, gas, and oil. Why not unleash all of our resources? Number two, we've lost 100,000 factories. 100,000 factories in the last 25 years. If we continued on my Made in America plan, we could bring jobs back to America in a similar fashion that we did when I wrote the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We actually lowered the corporate tax from 35% to 21%, reshored or repatriated $1.7 trillion. We brought the unemployment rates for African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians to the lowest level in the history of the country, and a 70-year low for women.
Governor Haley, would you think you would deserve the promotion over him?
Look, I appreciate Tim. We've known each other a long time.
Corny, look at him and talk to her.
He hasn't done any of that. He hasn't. They've only given 4 budgets on time in 40 years. He was part of that. He increased the national debt. He voted for the spending.
You voted
he has made sure that the borders are open and they haven't done anything. Look at everything that's happened. 12 years. Where have you been? Where have you been, Tim?
I voted on most of those things.
We've waited and nothing has happened.
Here's what you've done.
Here's the thing that I just find interesting.
Ron, let me finish
all
it first.
These guys have said
here's the
things,
fact.
and I appreciate a lot of the things they're saying.
Nikki
I'm
Haley,
the only one up here who's gotten in the big fights and has delivered big victories for the people of Florida. And that's what it's all about. You can always talk, but when it gets hot in there, when they're shooting arrows at you, are you going to stand up for parents' rights, to keep the state free? Are you going to be able to do all those things? And in the state of Florida, because of our success, the Democratic Party lies in ruins. We have won the big fights. We have turned our state into a Republican state. People respond to leadership. I've done it while others have talked about it.
CEO? We actually have a CEO.
Best line from DeSantis.
He just took the whole discussion away from everybody else.
We need a zero-based budgeting. That's the way businesses are actually run. Start with 0 as the baseline for the budget and then see what's actually necessary. There isn't a blue state or a red state in this union that does it. The federal government doesn't do it. But successful companies, including the ones that I've built as a CEO, will do it. And I think we need a CEO in the White House to get that done.
Governor Burgum runs a state that way. Yes,
tech
go
questions,
ahead.
you didn't ask the only guy that's been in tech. You have energy questions, you don't ask anything. But I'm just going to say right now, when you say nobody else has done it, the energy plans that have all been announced in the last month by these other folks on stage, we're already doing it in North Dakota. The border plans they're already talking about, we've got troops down at the border flying helicopter missions from North Dakota, from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop transnational criminal organizations from inflicting the invasion and the mass casualties in our state. And on the energy policy, we're already doing it. And it's not saying when nobody else done the big fights, North Dakota was leading the charge. We won the battle to get the Biden administration, who was ignoring the law. They were the first administration since Truman that wasn't holding the quarterly required lease sales, and we won that in federal court. WOTUS, we won that in federal court. We're fighting the Biden administration on 20 fronts. To say that nobody's fighting the big fights, just look at the record of what we're doing right now. Energy, economy, national security, have been talking about it since day one, and now finally, good, we're having the conversation about it, but we've got the answer in North Dakota.
Governor Burgum, let's
Good
talk
for you,
big
brother.
government. This question's for you. Big government keeps getting bigger. 1/5 of all new jobs this year have been created by the government. Governor Burgum, you say you want to shrink the size of government, but it has been a century since any president has done that. Why would you be any different?
Well, because we've done it in North Dakota. When I took office, We shrunk the state budget general fund by 27% in the first 4 months I was in office, and all the trains still running on time. Why? Because you had a business leader that was actually there. Inside of every government job, there's 10 or 20% of mind-numbing, soul-sucking work that even the state and federal employees don't want to do, and you can engineer that work out of the job. That would free up right there 20% of 2 million civilian employees. And by the way, we've got 10 million jobs open. They'd have plenty to do, and they could be generating taxes instead of being paid by taxes. This is totally possible to do it if you have somebody that understands, because having worked in technology for 30 years, everything we had to do was to be better, faster, and cheaper the next day. That's what we can do in government. That's what we're doing in North Dakota.
All right.
Yeah,
Governor
that's
DeSantis.
his best moment right there.
That was very good.
Yep.
I want to ask you about something that I think is on a lot of Republicans' minds. This election could come down to less than 50,000 votes in 3 states. Abortion was on the ballot in 6 states in 2022. Republicans lost all of them. Next year, abortion will likely be on the ballot in Arizona. That is a must-win state. Governor DeSantis, how are you going to win over independent, pro-choice voters in Arizona?
Same way we did in Florida. We won the greatest Republican victory in a governor's race in the history of the state, over 1.5 million votes. We were winning places like Miami-Dade County, Palm Beach, that nobody thought was possible because we were leading with purpose and conviction. I reject this idea that pro-lifers are to blame for midterm defeats. I think there's other reasons for that. The former president, he's missing in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that. He should be here explaining his comments to try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing. I want him to look into the eyes and tell people who've been fighting this fight for a long time. My wife and I earlier today were at the gravesite of President and Mrs. Reagan, and I noticed that there was a quote where it says, every single person has purpose and worth. We're better off when everybody counts. And I think we should stand for what we believe in. I think we should hold the Democrats accountable for their extremism, supporting abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. That is infanticide, and that is wrong.
Let me ask Governor Christie. Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans...
Yes, I will.
Okay, Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans can do that in Arizona if this referendum is on the ballot there?
Yeah, because I did it in New Jersey, Dana.
Then why are all these other states losing?
Well, because they don't have leaders in those states who are leading the fight the way it should be led. And the fact is, look, I was the governor here of the only blue state that's represented up here. This is where the fight is really tough for Republicans. And those are the states that we're going to have to try to win if we're going to win the White House back. And what we did is 14 times, Dana, in 8 years, I vetoed Planned Parenthood funding. 14 times. No one else gets it that much. The Democrats just kept sending it to me, and I kept saying no because I believe in life, but I also believe in states' rights. And I think we fought hard against Roe versus Wade for decades to say that states should make these decisions. So we're going to have those fights in the states. But what you need is a leader who can talk to people and make them understand that if you're pro-life, you have to be pro-life for the entire life, not just the 9 months in the womb. And we talked a lot about fentanyl tonight, and we haven't spoken one moment about treatment. But we need to make sure that for the drug-addicted 16-year-old on the floor of the county lockup, her life is precious too. And we need to be providing treatment to cure this as a disease that it is. If you're pro-life, you got to be pro-life for the entire life. We start talking like that, they're going to do what I did in the blue state, which was get reelected with 61% of the vote and won 70% of independents and 51% of Latinos because I told them the truth from my heart.
Thank you.
Vice President Pence.
Hey, Christie sure is getting a lot of love tonight.
73%
He's had a good
of Latino
night.
voters think the Republican Party doesn't care about or is being hostile toward them, the Hispanic community. Only Governor DeSantis has translated his campaign into Spanish. How will you reach out to Latino voters?
Well, I promise you that we're going to continue to build bridges to every community in this country. And I'm incredibly proud of that tax cut and tax reform bill. I worked on Capitol Hill to help get that bill passed into law, the largest tax cut in American history. We saw literally the lowest unemployment ever recorded for Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans, 50-year low for women. So I think the President of the United States needs to be a champion for the American dream for every American. It begins with the unborn and the aged and the infirm. And it begins with every ethnic group in this country. And I promise you, if I'm president of the United States, I'll be a champion. I'll be a champion for the American dream, for Hispanic Americans, and for every American. So help me God.
Senator Scott, reaction?
Yes, there's no doubt that if you lead by example, it's the best way to get the job done. If you look at my office in the Senate, my chief of staff is the only Hispanic female chief of staff in the Senate. I hired her because she was the best, highest qualified person we have. What we need are leaders who lead by example. And I will simply say, I would love to finish my conversation with Nikki as it relates to the job that needs to get done. Nikki offered a 10% gas tax increase in South Carolina. Talk about someone who has never seen a federal dollar she doesn't like. Ooh. 10 cents on the gallon in South Carolina. As the UN ambassador, you literally put $50,000 on curtains in a $15 million subsidized location. Next.
You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the establishment.
Just go to YouTube.
Against the establishment.
Just go to
and
YouTube
you want to know what that 10 cent was? When they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment and the companies wanted me to do it so much that I said the only way I will pass it if you will give us three.
All you have to do is go watch Nikki Haley on YouTube.
Yes. If you will give me 3 times the deduction in income tax, then I will look at your gas tax, which is why it didn't happen.
Exactly, Ron.
Secondly, on the 50 million.
Here is a nice part.
Secondly, on the curtains, do your homework, Tim, because Obama bought those curtains.
Did you send them back?
It's in the press.
Did you send them back?
It's the State Department.
Did you send them back?
Did you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
Oh my gosh.
You get it
You
done.
hung them on your curtains.
They were there before I even showed up at the residence. You are
come on.
You are scrapping.
The Battle of South Carolina here is getting lame.
Here's the fact, though.
I loaded up on
Stop this.
Yeah, this makes the party look good.
To go ahead like this. In fact, we're about to take a commercial break. We'll have more of the second Republican debate live from the Reagan Presidential Library in just a few moments.
Energy independence and security. These are some of the ways life is better for North Dakota and the entire U.S. thanks to our oil and natural gas industry. Being less dependent on unfriendly foreign energy sources makes our nation stronger. Oil and natural gas make it possible. With North Dakota's resources, we're making America more secure for generations. North Dakota's oil and natural gas, advancing the possibilities.
The Republican presidential debate on the flag is brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation.
All right, guys, I got to tell you, you are the political minds in this room. I'm not. My politics is the garage party. So from my view on this debate tonight, I'm getting really nothing out of this thing. It's just a cluster. It's a mess, and it's not so much the candidates. I think the hosts are doing a horrible job. They're bouncing around the place. They're not letting the candidates that should be commenting on some of the questions they're asking because it's in their wheelhouse. They're not getting the. It's just what a mess.
They are trying to make a TV show out of a debate instead of making a debate out of a TV show. Dear God in heaven, give me one debate like this to ask the question, what is your plan to fix $33 trillion in debt? What is your plan to fix crime and escalation? What is your crime to fix fentanyl? What is your crime to fix?
And
what's
give
your
them
plan
all
to
a
fix
minute to answer.
The border? And let them give. Here's my 3 things I would do. Instead, we end up talking about who sent whose curtains back.
We're arguing about curtains. Honestly, you know what they should be doing? They should be doing these debates and saying, okay, we're going to do these debates. Guess what? There's going to be 2 topics, and that's it. Next debate, we're going to hit 2 more topics.
I agree. Some people have had good nights, no question about it. Has anyone taken a chunk out of Trump tonight? That's my question.
Oh, the Donald Duck line from Chris Christie was a real winner.
Yeah.
And DeSantis is clearly trying to get under Trump's skin by saying, you ought to be here, you should be here, you should be. But they look like whiny little kids. I don't know. I don't think any of the Trump stuff has landed at all.
I think Doug Burgum is having a good night.
I do too.
Well, he is, when he can get in
Aggressive.
there, he's getting in there, he's jumping in there. And when they come to him for a question, it is pow, pow, pow.
8 minutes and 25 seconds so far for the governor.
Okay.
We've been keeping tabs on how much time he got. He got 10 minutes last time. So far, he's. If you ask me, they have really shafted him.
But if
they are just ignoring him. And then cut him off 30 seconds into an answer.
If he gets less time tonight, he's probably going to end up, because this is almost over. But that 8 minutes is worth way more tonight coming out of his mouth than it was the first debate.
I 100% agree with that. I think he has moved the ball down the field. How far, we don't know yet. But I think you're hearing more from him. And even though he's kind of been knocking on the door and Dana Perino keeps slamming it on him, at least people know that he's there.
Well, I can tell you this, again, it's Drudge, but these are people voting. And I'm watching every time Burgum gets his chance, I'm watching his poll, and his percentages are climbing. He's climbing up in this thing. I think this is going to help him big time, guys.
You know, I'm looking to be inspired. I'm looking to have somebody really speak for me and the things that I'm concerned about and I worry about for my kids and their future. And nobody's really done that tonight. Nobody. It's like a schoolyard brawl. And I do put most of it on the commentators.
It's the commentators.
On the three that are asking, because it just is. It's been a poorly run debate, I think. It really has.
I think Mike Pence has tried, but every time I feel like he's talking to me like I'm a third grade school kid or something like that. It just doesn't seem to ring very true. I think DeSantis was really weak in the start of this debate. I think he's had a much better night, though, as the night has gone on. I think he's more of the comment about his military service and how that helps him understand the military climate and culture. I think really important. Another good moment on life. He talked about winning in Florida with the same stances that people wonder about nationally. Can they win nationally? I think he's been able to bridge that gap too. I think he's done well as the night's gone on.
All right, here we go. Back. Let's wrap up this second GOP presidential debate.
And we'll be talking with our live panel coming up.
I could go another hour, but we only have a few minutes. And candidates, it's now obvious that if you all stay in the race, former President Donald Trump wins the nomination. None of you have indicated that you're dropping out. So, which one of you on stage tonight should be voted off the island? Please use your marker to write your choice on the notepad in front of you. 15 seconds, starting of the people on the stage. Who should be?
Are you serious?
Due respect. I mean, we're here. Like, we're happy to debate, but I think that's disrespectful to my fellow competitors.
Good for you, DeSantis.
Let's do some questions. Let's talk about the future of the country.
I want to be clear.
Let me ask you this.
If I may.
Let me ask you something. Then if you won't answer to that question, let me ask you this one.
Yeah.
What is your mathematical path,
Yes.
Governor DeSantis, in order to try to beat President Trump, who has a commanding and enduring lead in this race?
So polls don't elect presidents. Voters elect presidents. Right. And we're going to take the case of the people in these early states. We're going to do it in a state-by-state direction. And why? Because as Reagan said in his day, this is our time for choosing. We are not getting a mulligan on the 2024 election. Republicans have lost 3 straight elections in a row. We were supposed to have a red wave with inflation at 9%. It crashed and burned. Not in Florida, it didn't. We delivered it in Florida. And so we've got to choose right. We've got to win. And we need somebody that's going to be able to serve 2 terms. So in January of 2023, they'll be able to address the nation saying, we turned the economy around, we secured the border, and we fended off the threat from communist China. As your president, I will get that job done.
Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something. Governor Christie, I believe, excuse me, Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something on the card. Who was it?
No, but I'll certainly tell you.
Go.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, I think I've been the only one on this stage who's been clear about this. I vote Donald Trump off the island right now.
There's a
and
surprise.
the reason I vote him off the island,
but any of the people on the stage.
You know what? Every person on this stage has shown the respect for Republican voters to come here to express their views honestly, candidly, and directly, and to take your questions honestly.
Hey, look, Christie's irrelevant unless Donald Trump's on the stage. This is a self-serving tabloid.
I still got time, dude. So chill out. Here, look. This guy has not only divided our party, he's divided families all over this country. He's divided friends all over this country. I've spoken to people, and I know everyone else has, who have sat at Thanksgiving dinner or at a birthday party and can't have a conversation anymore if they disagree with Donald Trump.
Governor
He needs to
and
be voted
candidates.
off the island, and he needs to be taken out of this process.
Can we get Vivek 15 seconds?
All right, you've got 15 seconds,
I
Vivek.
appreciate your sense of humor. Look, I have a different view on this. I think Trump was an excellent president, but the America First agenda does not belong to one man. It does not belong to Donald Trump. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, the people of this country. And the question is, who's going to unite this country and take the America First agenda to the next level? When we rallied behind the cry to make America great again, we did not just hunger for a single man. We hungered for the unapologetic pursuit of excellence. So yes, I will respect Donald Trump and his legacy because it's the right thing to do. But we will unite this country to take the America First agenda to the next level, and that will take a different generation to do it.
He threads that needle so well.
I repeat, that does it for the second Republican primary debate live from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library.
Thank you to all the candidates. We've loved having you here tonight, and we will see you out on the campaign trail.
Have a great evening. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Good night. Buenas noches.
You've heard the candidates. Now it's your chance to weigh in.
Fox News Audio
Which candidates
presents
stood out? Which candidates failed to shine? Post-debate coverage of the Republican presidential debate begins now on The Flag. Brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation.
All right, straight up 10 o'clock, and that's it. Number 2 in the books. And Steve Hallstrom, Scott Hennen, I'm Jay Thomas. So do a little post-game show. And look at Scott. He's just itching to get out there and talk to our guests out there.
I'm curious if they have the same opinion that this was.
Can you give them each a card, and will you have them right on the card?
Who
and
did you
see
want to
they
vote
wanna
off the
vote
island?
How about the commentators?
Absolutely
that
ridiculous.
that debate?
Okay, folks, we want to hear from all of you. We're going to go lightning round to everybody. Give me your highlights. Give me your lowlights. Good debate, bad debate. What do you think?
Not the best. Again, they continue to go after Trump, and here's the thing. There's not one person in this room, not one person in this country, not one person anywhere that doesn't know what Trump feels about any of these issues. That's what I would say at the end of the day.
All right. Were you happy with tonight?
No. I think the moderators did a terrible job, and I think that dictated the whole night.
Who won?
I think Nikki Haley had a good showing. I think DeSantis did. I think the one guy, Debani, I think he
Ramaswamy? Yep. Gotcha. What did you think of the debate?
I think it was an absolute travesty. It took 43 minutes to get Governor Burgum his first direct question. You know, it just, how's a guy up there who leads, you know, in energy and technology and all that stuff not getting those questions?
Yeah, he had to bust his way in, didn't he? He didn't get a fair shake from the moderators, that's for sure. What'd you think?
Well, I would agree the moderators were the big losers tonight, I think. And I don't know, I thought DeSantis was pretty solid. Nikki Haley made a good showing, and Vivek also wasn't too shabby either.
How do we think Doug Burgum did with the limited time that he had, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, they really didn't give him the questions that he could have thrived on, the energy questions. They gave him the one farmer question, but it felt like it was a token thing. So I thought he did very well, you know, but you start to get anxious when you have to push so much of what you'd like to say into such a short time.
Who won?
Oh, man. You know, I don't think anybody won tonight. I think Vivek brought the best energy. As far as the biggest delta for me, Chris Christie went up the most for me.
Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't think I thought some of his remarks in the first debate weren't very tasteful. But, you know, put your hand down for a second, Vivek. That was, I mean, he's got a sense of humor and he's a reasonable person, I think.
Interesting. All right. What'd you think?
I thought it was all right. I didn't get around to watching the first one. But I think Tim Scott actually won a little bit of my favor. Ron DeSantis a little bit more. I'm not a big fan of Vivek, not a big fan of Chris Christie, but like Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, and Tim Scott.
Did you find yourself hearing the issues you wanted debated?
Yeah, I think more or less, a little bit more, at least the perspectives that people have on things. I think they at least got talked about. Maybe not in the right light, but they at least got talked about.
Interesting. Okay. Give me your take.
So I would say most improved candidate, Doug Burgum. I think I wanted to see two things from him tonight, which was being more assertive and more aggressive, and also showing the victories in North Dakota. I think he hit both of those. I do think at the same time, I think we're going to see Vivek bump Ron DeSantis from the number 2 slot.
Very interesting. Yeah, Vivek was on fire tonight, especially early on. He really was. What do you think?
I was very disappointed in the whole format, just being all over the place with all of the questions, not giving equal time to all of the candidates. You know, they said they were going to do that from the get-go, but it seemed like they were concentrating on Mike Pence and Chris Christie, and the rest of the candidates had to kind of bust their way in and give answers.
Despite the format, who do you think broke through tonight?
I don't think there was a clear winner tonight.
That's interesting. I kind of don't either. I mean, you know, there were highlights from a few, but I think the moderators kind of wrecked it, to tell you the truth, and took a little bit of the shine off. What do you think?
Well, I think DeSantis did a good job. Haley did a good job. I think really, in terms of like a starting point to an ending point, I think Burgum probably did the best. I think he showed, you know, what he's about and what he's for, you know, energy, economy, and national security. I think he came across really well.
8 minutes and 25 seconds is all he had in a 2-hour debate, and I would agree with you. Pound for pound, he used that 8 minutes pretty darn well. What'd you think?
Well, I would agree he did. I mean, it was 43 minutes into the first time he got to speak, 40 minutes more before he got to speak a second time. That is just garbage, and I think the moderators were picking winners and choosers, and you notice that they were saying that this question was against this other candidate. It was designed to make them both look bad. And I think that the liberal takeover of Fox News has turned it into a garbage, just no different than NBC.
Yeah, I mean, there were. You look at the questions. You look at the questions beginning to end. CNN could have hosted that debate. You know, really, it was. I totally agree with you. What do you think?
I thought it was a terrible debate, but I was very proud of the way Doug Burgum answered. And he had to be a little more aggressive to even get in there tonight, but his answers were spot on. So I was very impressed with him.
Yeah, great. You guys are wonderful. You're doing a great job of breaking this all down, and it's the fascinating part of us, a fascinating part for us as folks that follow these things to really hear what the folks react to, what you liked, what you didn't like firsthand. So thanks for everybody doing this. What'd you think?
Well, I actually did like Doug Burgum's answers. I think he probably had the most informed answers. I think he needs to be able to jump outside of the North Dakota kind of box that they have him in. I do think Chris Christie, believe it or not, I'm not a real Chris Christie fan by any means, but I do think that he probably won over some never-Trumpers perhaps. And then I think out of all the people who maybe picked up some, I think Nikki Haley did. I'm not necessarily a Nikki Haley fan either, but I think she did pretty well tonight.
She was in the middle of a food fight with Tim Scott. That was really something. What'd you think?
I was intrigued by a lot of the responses from the people on stage. I didn't think the questions were placed so that they would elicit their best responses, and I thought they shut off the debate between the people up there that would have allowed the real interaction that we could judge who had the opinion that we followed the most and liked the most. So I really was disappointed that they shut off the flow of speaking between the people up on the stage. I really was disappointed by that.
Very, very good point, especially when you consider that they pledged that they were going to make their mission getting the candidates to debate each other, you know, and as you said, they cut them off. They stopped doing it. Anything else anybody wants to add? It's burning a hole in your pocket?
Well, I thought the whole, voting somebody off, that writing the name on a card at the end was absurd. That was an absolute joke. I'm glad that they didn't play along.
Yeah, they really rejected that overwhelmingly, didn't they? Anything else you want to add?
I just think that if we don't start doing better, the winner tonight was the Democrat Party. Mm-hmm. You know, as much as it pains me to say that, we've got to quit fighting with ourselves and start finding a way to get somebody in the White House.
So these candidates, you put that on the candidates themselves are not doing a good job of that, or the format didn't allow them?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, Nikki Haley and Tim Scott took plenty of time to take shots at each other, and I don't think this early into the campaign we need to be taking personal shots. We should be learning about the candidates so the voters can make informed decisions.
Say again.
The issues. That's what we should be talking about, is the issues, not curtains. I don't care about curtains. I care about the issues.
What about TikTok, right? And the UAW strike, and there were some really bizarre ones for sure. That's for sure. So overall, I'm going to ask everybody for a grade tonight on our governor, Doug Burgum, and how he did. We'll wrap up with that question. What's your grade for the governor?
I'd give him an A tonight.
Wow.
Yeah, a solid B, B+.
Yeah, I think compared to the last time, definitely B+. I mean, he really came out and got assertive and kind of got rid of the North Dakota nice, which was good to see.
He was battling, wasn't he? What do you give him for a grade?
When he got to speak, it was an A.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I'll agree. When he got to speak, it was an A, but the format really was not kind to him.
Yeah, that's for sure. What do you give Governor Doug Burgum for a grade tonight?
I'd give him an A.
Well, he's faring pretty well. What do you think?
I would give him an A as well.
Wow. How about the young guy here, 22-year-old? What do you think of Doug Burgum?
I'd give him a B. I'd say he did a very well job. Like he was very informative of what he was talking about, but I don't know how relatable he'd be to a mass audience of the entire United States.
Interesting. What's the grade?
I'll give him an A. I think he had to cram a lot into a short period of time, but I also put that on the moderators.
He really did have to do that. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say a B as well. What Melissa said, he needs to get outside the box. We need to appeal to people in swing states. And when you look at the Electoral College, then people in Pittsburgh are listening and saying, "Nah, I don't care about farmers in North Dakota. I want to know how you're going to run the country." So to break outside of that North Dakota, talk about national politics.
That's great. We love it when he's talking about North Dakota, but I think that's a fair point that that's not necessarily going to appeal to a wide swath of voters. Good point. What's the 3 more to go here? What's the grade?
I give him a B, but I give him extra points for not losing his temper with Dana Perino.
Yeah, she was real. They were fencing, weren't they? They were. The grade?
My grades don't quite work the same way. I'd give him a 92. So the reason why I'd give him a 92 is I thought he did an excellent job of bringing forth the policies he thought the country needed to raise it above this pathetic state that Biden's brought us to. The problem why it's not 100% is he only used North Dakota, and over again he kept saying North Dakota is the model, which he needs to do because people need to look at the model he's saying. So look at my history, so look at North Dakota. But he's got to have something bigger than North Dakota because we're a small version of the United States. Fargo, Bismarck are like the big, that's like New York and Los Angeles and North Dakota, and it doesn't quite work for the country. So that's where I think he really missed.
But still pretty good at 92.
Oh, like I said, that's awesome.
Yeah. What's the grade?
A. I'm from Minnesota, and I love Doug Burgum, but I think anytime he got to speak, it was solid, and more people probably know him now than they did before.
Give yourselves a round of applause. You guys are wonderful, great pundits right here. We love the Real People poll, and Jay, Steve, back to you guys.
All right, it's 12 minutes after 10 o'clock, and our post-debate show continues here. 701-271-1100 is the number if you want to weigh in. All right, guys, some great conversation out there with our panel, our guests. I think everybody's on the same page that this debate sucked. It was the moderators. They destroyed it, and you got to think that behind the scenes, some people are going to get chewed out at Fox News Corporation. This was brutal, and it really seemed like there was a slobbering love affair for Chris Christie and Michael Pence tonight. It's almost like the rest of the candidates, like the one person said out there in the audience. It's like all of them had a fight to get in. They were just focused on Pence and Christie, and I don't understand that.
I don't remember being this disappointed in a debate. Yeah, usually there's things that fire you up, but it was just listless. It was a non-starter, and I really got to put that on the moderators. Yep. I just think it was a poorly run debate.
Completely agree with you guys. And we said it in our pregame show. Look at what's happened in our country in the last 48 hours. The issues facing us as Americans are so huge, so massive. Like, it should have been a race to say, who can start talking policy points to fix this problem first? How do you what would you take from his answer and add to it so we can start fixing these problems? We've got a crime issue, we've got a border issue, we've got a drug issue, we've got a mental health issue, we've got an economic issue, an inflation issue, and we spent time talking about trick questions and what about the LGBTQ kids in your schools? And look, those things, I get it. There are people that want to hear about that, but I think the American people are desperate for solutions to the problems that face them every day. And I don't think this debate helped flesh out how people are going to fix those problems.
It did. And Casey, you're up on AM 1100 The Flag. Hello, Casey.
Hi. I'd like to weigh in on the debate.
Yes.
I thought Fox Business, especially Dana Perino, did a terrible, terrible job. The format was absolutely horrible.
There was no format. It was all over the road. That's the problem.
And they did not give Burgum enough time. They spent more time worried about Nikki Haley and her issues with everybody else. I mean, I don't care what her curtains are. I don't care
That
what.
was so dumb. Gosh, that was dumb by Tim Scott.
Yeah, and they spent more time nitpicking than actually talking about issues. I want to hear the issues on how they're going to solve this country and not how they're going to nitpick each other. And Chris Christie needs to just go away. He needs to go back to MSDNC and leave the Republican Party because he's not a Republican.
No, he's
he
not.
He hasn't been a Republican for many years.
701-271-1100 if you want to join the conversation and rate the debate. 701-271-1100.
Casey, I brought this up earlier. I mean, honestly, after watching this tonight, and it's just back and forth, we're getting nothing out of it. I honestly think moving on, okay, if you're going to have these debates, there's going to be two topics at tonight's debate, and that's it. You're not going to bring up something else. These are the two topics we're going to focus on, whether it's the border, the economy, whatever, abortion, whatever. Next debate, we'll pick two more topics, and that's it, because we're getting nothing out of this stuff, guys. Casey, thanks for the phone call.
I would say there are three things I had an issue with the commentators tonight, three specific points. One is just kind of the overall scattered questions and going small picture on this and big picture on that and a different thing and these little niche questions along the way. I didn't like that. The second thing was, okay, Nikki Haley and Tim Scott, I want you guys to look at each other and argue about something. It felt so forced. And then at the end, vote somebody off the island. It's just so gimmicky. And Fox News Channel or Fox Business or whatever did no favors to the Republicans in this country who are really trying to understand what these candidates are all about. Did you guys learn much tonight about anything that the candidates believed or what their ideas or policies were?
No, they didn't.
I didn't either. And I think we had 2 hours to do that, but they were trying to make a circus out of this 2-hour special instead of really let the candidates speak about the issues that matter.
You heard one of our guests out there in the crowd made the comment that, what do you expect? Basically, Fox News has become so liberal. I think there's some of that play going on in there. But now that Murdoch has handed it over to his kid, how do you pronounce his kid's name?
Lachlan.
Lachlan. From what I've read, Lachlan is very, very right wing. And I think he's going to get in here. You're going to start seeing a lot of this stuff go away. I really
don't think
do.
any of the Murdochs are right wing.
Well, he is.
But
everything
more
I read,
conservative than his
he's
dad.
he's very conservative. Yeah.
I think I'm no Chris Christie fan, but you guys, if I'm going to be honest and call the balls and strikes tonight, I think he had a good night.
That's because he got all the attention.
Maybe
I don't think he did.
Oh,
what did he say that inspired you?
Oh, I thought there were a couple points along the way that where he got in and said
Ukraine he was good at.
That answer on Ukraine and foreign policy and why you can't ignore China and Russia working together was
good. Yep.
was very good. I had a couple notes. His best answer was on Ukraine. There was another point too that I thought he gave a good answer on the life question, which is not in his wheelhouse, but he handled it well and talked about how life is an issue that should be sent to the states. And he just handled an issue that was not a strong one for him because I don't think he's a big pro-life guy.
I thought Ron DeSantis performed very well tonight.
I did too.
And started out bad, got way better.
And got in a lot of licks about his own strengths in being a governor and actually been there, done that.
Yeah.
Did a pretty good job tonight. I don't think anybody really won. I really don't.
Let me let's go.
Let me say this one thing though. I thought Nikki Haley won all night long, and I don't know that she trounced the field, but her answers when she was asked about answers about school kids, she talked about the family, and you could just see her talking to moms out there, and she's got that niche, I think. Well, she talked about China, demonstrated her knowledge of the foreign policy. I thought she was really strong all night long. I still, as a conservative, want to hear her talk about climate change and social issues because I don't think that she's a conservative in those areas, but things about spending, foreign policy, domestic security, she easily moves through all those subjects. She speaks strongly with some conviction, but a little softness every once in a while too. I thought she was a clear winner tonight.
All right, Crystal in Fargo, you're up on AM 1100 The Flag.
Yeah, hey, I thought that the topics also with lawlessness, and they asked the candidates, what would you do about the high crimes? So both Governor Christie, DeSantis, were looking at prosecution of the criminals. Mm-hmm. And Nikki Haley also was talking about prosecution of the criminals. So those things came out. And then she said something also that I did not know about, is this amoxicillin. She said that there's a company in Bristol, Tennessee that can make this, but right now the federal government is getting their shipments from China.
Yeah.
And I was uncomfortable with that because she speaks the truth.
I hadn't heard that either.
Why are we doing that?
I hadn't heard that either.
There was a first for everybody.
Yeah, there was a couple things you're like, where did that come from? And I'm trying to remember what they were.
There was another one, so we all looked at each other.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Crystal,
and they also talked about education. And Nikki Haley was talking about let's have education back in our schools. And there was talk about charter schools and the success. Even Chris Christie was talking about taking the worst school and turning that around. And so there were little bits and pieces in between the garbled nitpicky. But there were some interesting parts that I do agree with everybody. It was not run well.
One of those was Doug Burgum's answer on the healthcare technology, like the software piece or whatever that costs $1 trillion. That was something like that came out of nowhere. That was another example of that.
All right, 21 minutes after 10 o'clock. Let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, if you want to jump in on the conversation, 701-271-1100. You can also email us. What is the email for the flag? I don't want to give all the details.
Studio@flagfamily.com.
Studio@flagfamily.com. It's that simple. Again, 701-271-1100. Again, let's thank the sponsors that made this possible tonight, and that is North Dakota Petroleum Foundation, Americans for Prosperity, and a big thank you, Casey Joe's Catering. Amazing food. They fed everybody.
Except me. I haven't eaten.
I'm quite sure there's going to be a little bit left for you, Scott.
I'm going to celebrate, yeah.
All right, hang on, callers. We're getting you as soon as we can. Quick break and more of the post-debate show when we come back.
The Republican presidential debate on the flag is brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation.
Nearly 50,000 good-paying jobs. That's one of the ways life is better in North Dakota. Thanks to our oil and natural gas industry, people deserve an opportunity to earn a good, honest living. Oil and natural gas are making it possible. With these jobs, thousands of North Dakotans are bringing prosperity home for their families and communities, and will for generations to come. North Dakota's oil and natural gas, advancing the possibilities.
When you need a generator, you need the region's generator experts. Air Mechanical of Fargo offers quality Briggs & Stratton or Generac fixed generators for commercial or residential use. And Air Mechanical has the best generator service team, serving an 80-mile radius of Fargo-Moorhead. You can count on Air Mechanical, family-owned and operated with over 4 decades of service in commercial and industrial HVAC systems and generators. Online at air-mech.com. Air Mechanical, Fargo.
Buying a car can be a hassle, and it's not always easy to agree. At Valley Imports, we're here to help you find the perfect vehicle. Looking for a family-friendly vehicle, or maybe something a little sportier? With over 20 different models of SUVs, our team will help you find a vehicle that fits your lifestyle while staying within your budget. From the day of purchase to any future service and repairs, we're not here to sell you a car, we're here to help you find the car that suits you best. Valley Imports, where finding the perfect car is a journey tailored just for you.
Ready to launch your small business? Or take your farm from some acres to a lot of acres? How about that big proposal?
Will you marry me?
Or that huge surprise? That forever dream home. The one you can take anywhere. Wherever you are in life, be sure you're ready to say yes. First International Bank and Trust. Say yes to living first. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Schools, roads, and flood protection. These are the important local projects being funded across North Dakota, thanks to our state's oil and natural gas. In fact, North Dakota's oil and natural gas industry pays billions of dollars in taxes every year. It provides big benefits to our counties and communities, addressing local needs and making life better for generations. North Dakota's oil and natural gas, advancing the possibilities.
Now, back to post-debate coverage of the Republican presidential debate on The Flag. Brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation.
You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
Oh,
you're scared now.
Oh, you wiped out Donald's base with that one, knucklehead. 25 after Central Time. That voice you hear is Scott Hennen, and he is host of What's on Your Mind on AM 1100 The Flag. The other voice you hear there, that is Steve Hallstrom, host of the Steve Hallstrom Show. And you can check him out, by the way, after you're done listening to my show. You can check Steve out at 4 p.m. Central Time to 6. Scott's on 8:30 a.m. Central Time. I host on.
You're not even on this station, bud.
I'm on the station. Look at the phones rocking. And, of course, the big brother station, WDAY, I'm on 2 to 5 in the afternoon. My name is Jay Thomas. Let's go to the phones. We're going all over. Let's go to North Carolina. And Ella, welcome to AM 1100 The Flag in Fargo, North Dakota.
Well, thank you. I think your man, Bagram, or however you pronounce his name, did a very fine job tonight. In spite of the very poorly managed debate by what is now CNN instead of Fox. It was very badly. I'm very disappointed in Dana Perino because I am a fan of hers. I am not a fan of Chris Christie, and I think he behaved reprehensibly in his comments against the front runner in this race for the Republican presidential.
I think Christie hurt himself really bad tonight. I don't know why this guy's on the stage. I don't get it.
Well, his lane is he's got to be the anti-Trump guy.
Well,
that's his only.
true.
That's his
It's too
only
much.
lane.
It's too much.
True.
It's over the top.
It is.
Well,
I mean, stick to the issues.
He had some good things to say, but also the other example of the chaos was the food fight over curtains and gas tax. And Nikki Haley did not show well, nor did Tim Scott, in terms of being able to control themselves in a debate.
Ella, what did you think? Ella, what did you think of Governor DeSantis tonight?
I don't care for DeSantis. The people who were commenting said that Bagram needed to get out of the box of talking about North Dakota as an example. Well, Kristi Noem has done a fantastic job. He was making very good examples, And he is just as justified to make North Dakota the example as DeSantis is to keep telling us about how he did in Florida, because he would not have been the governor of Florida if it hadn't been for Donald J. Trump.
That's true.
Awesome,
That's
down there and saved his bacon.
Very, very.
Hey, Ella, before we let you go, can I ask from North Carolina how you found our stream tonight?
I don't know, just luck, I guess.
Okay, well, we're thankful you did.
I've never gotten through on anything, and I have tonight, and you are on my bucket list. I'm 80 years old, and I am a retired school teacher and caregiver.
God bless you.
And I've got a lot of opinions, and the other opinion was I have been impressed with Vivek Ramaswamy. I think he's too young yet, but I appreciate him taking up for Donald Trump after Christie tried to throw him under the bus.
Well, Ella,
because Christie was responsible for Donald Trump not being able to navigate the horrible thing that Chris Wallace did in that debate in 2020.
There you go. Ella, appreciate the phone call. I got to let you go because we got five. Well, I got one open line now. But Ella, if your bucket list includes coming to North Dakota, you make sure you look us up, and we will show you
Roll
the
out
town.
the red carpet.
We will give you North Dakota nice.
And you're not 80 years old, sweetheart. You're 80 years young.
There
So you
go.
keep on going. We appreciate you, Ella.
Let's go to Brooklyn, New York. Jillian, thanks for hanging on. You're up on AM 1100, The Flag in Fargo, North Dakota.
Hi. I too, I'm new to North Dakota.
Welcome.
And thank you. I want to echo what a lot of you said. This was a snore fest and did not change my opinion at all. And I firmly believe that Trump still has a stance here. I didn't appreciate that they were, especially Chris Christie, poking fun, and you know, with the canned responses about Donald. I just didn't like that. I didn't think that was professional at all. I know it's politics, but please, this is not middle school.
Do you know what I was hoping for? I was. It would never happen. But I'm sitting here, Jillian, when Christie's pulling his BS, and I'm like, how great would it be if all of a sudden Trump comes walking out onto the stage? Oh, I'd be like, oh my God.
Yes, that would have been awesome. And and who else? I mean, they're trying to, take aim. I'm not sure what's with Pence. I mean, they gave him a lot of airtime.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was about. So I just didn't think it also was equitable.
Yeah, by the way, the 7 places there, Pence was 6, Burgum was 7. You compare the time they gave Pence versus Burgum is ridiculous.
Yeah, and Burgum did a lot better with his little bit. Hey, what did you think of our governor from North Dakota, Doug Burgum?
I thought he represented well, putting his, not spins, but sharing his opinions, perspectives. But they didn't give him a lot of time. It wasn't fair.
You're awesome, Jillian. Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Jillian. Glad you're listening in Brooklyn, New York. Let's go to John in Fargo. John, you're up on AM 1100, The Flag, in the post-debate show.
What you need to hear from a Democrat.
What's that?
I'm a supporter of North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate Governor Burgum. He sounds like a Republican to me. And I think had he not screwed up that first debate, he'd be getting a lot of support.
Yeah.
Because if just look in the mirror and say, who was the most serious candidate on the stage all night? It was Doug Burgum. And I think he's got a lot to offer. He's not charismatic. He's not going to have the dog and pony show like Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is not a serious American. So I think it's kind of too bad. When he said, I would pardon Donald Trump, even if he's convicted by any of these cases he's facing. That's a disgrace. and I was very unhappy with that. But he reminds me of what used to be a Republican. Now you people all have to be Trumpsters or quoting following Donald Trump.
Well, we can be whatever we want.
Right over the end of the.
We can follow whoever we want. That's what makes America great. If I want to follow Trump or DeSantis, or you want to follow whoever.
I understand. But I'm my opinion.
Yeah.
If I can have
John. So, first of all, I appreciate the call, and your civil tone is helpful here, and we don't mind these calls. I just would caution you to not have the judgment about everybody who is a Republican who maybe voted for Donald Trump to have a story written about them ahead of time. I think a lot of us are very willing to say Donald Trump has some weaknesses, maybe things that aren't perfect, but you have to look at what are we voting for versus what are we voting against. If you think that we're going to say, well, Joe Biden might have the best way forward for the country, you just don't understand how things work in the real world. And so I think you can say Donald Trump's not a perfect person, but policy-wise, he fights for a lot of things that make sense, and he's got the best set of answers than anybody, or better set of answers than anybody on the Democrat side. So nobody on this side is anointing him to be some kind of a second coming or a messiah. We just think he gets the job done politically.
John, appreciate the phone call. Steve in Fargo, you're up on the post-debate show on AM 1100 The Flag.
Yeah, okay. Say, first of all, the moniker, I think if any of you can phone up Donald Trump, I'd say I'd get a great big bat of a 55-gallon barrel of Crisco, and I'd use that.
I'm tracking with you here.
It's a little late, but help us out here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all kind of going, where's
we
he going?
We got bats and Crisco so far.
Yeah, get a little worried now, Steve.
Yeah. Well, Chris Christie's pretty much a 55 bat of Crisco.
Oh, okay. All right. I see where
you understand what I'm talking about.
Now I do. Yeah, now I understand. Steve, appreciate it. Dan, West Fargo, you're up.
Hey, so I don't watch these debates a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched the last two with Burgum. I think Burgum needs to stop with this North Dakota nice stuff, and he has to stop sitting there on the side of the stage and raising his hand to talk.
I did notice that when you said, Dan, I did check. I think we all commented, wait, Doug, don't raise your hand, just jump in here.
But he tried jumping in about 10 times, though.
He needs to jump in there. When he talked, what did you say, Scott, for 8 minutes and 25 seconds?
Yep.
He had good points, but he has to jump in.
Yeah.
He tried, and they did not let him in.
Yeah.
He really, really tried. You go back and look how many times he tried. I agree with you. I think he needs to be, aggressive in these debates because he's the last guy on the stage, so he's going to have a tough time. But I think I give him high points tonight on
I do too.
Getting in there.
When he was able to get in there, he was able to really get his point across, and he was able to do it where he explained what he did and what needs to be done.
I would guess about half of his time of that 8 minutes was him breaking in. Not being asked something.
Twice he tried to get in, and Dana Perino said no.
Yep.
It wasn't a great look for him, but you know what? I think he won by saying, okay, I respect who you are, what you're doing here. He would have lost some support, I think, if he would have just tried to barge right through Dana Perino.
But he would have, but I think he would have gained more than he would have lost because
he would have won more support, actually, if he would have broke in.
He's got to. I mean, politics it's an ugly sport, and you're up there, man. You're fighting, and you got to fight for your survival.
I thought he struck a good balance, but I hear what you guys are saying.
Dan, appreciate the phone call. 1037 701 271 1100. And it is the post-debate show going on. And
here's the questions. I wrote down every question, every topic, okay?
Hang on, callers. We'll get you in a second.
Here they are. UAW strike. Was that
16 questions to
how
start
long
the debate?
Did you write, Scott, by chance, how many minutes they wasted on that?
Gosh. Then it was child care.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a federal issue. Then are we going to give amnesty, because Ronald Reagan did, and then a border question, then China, undocumented children, DACA, A crime question, finally. Police shortage, another crime one. Repeal Obamacare. They got stuck on that for quite a while.
I don't know where that came up.
Insurance. People don't have insurance. What are you going to do? Healthcare bankruptcy. Education. Change identity. Oh, that was the question on
gender identity.
Parental rights, and dealing with that issue. Violent hate crimes, China, TikTok, Ukraine, New World Order, farm question for Governor Burgum. The scoundrels from Mexico question threw me off.
Well, then the tech question, and Burgum couldn't get on that. And that's a guy you want to hear from.
Al-Qaeda, 9/11, gas prices, student loan forgiveness. National debt did get one question, but no answers. Didn't let everybody answer the question. No. I think there was one, token answer to that.
Yeah, I think somebody pivoted to a different answer.
Shrinking big government, abortion, Hispanic and Latino voters. What are you going to do for them? And then the stupid question about
off the island.
Who we want off the island, Trump or whoever.
10:39 Central Standard Time, AM 1100. The Flag and the post debate show 701-271-1100 up to Argosville. Carl, thanks for hanging on. You're up.
Yeah, hey guys.
Hey.
I thought, first of all, I noticed the lighting was absolutely terrible in there. That it was all wrong. And the moderators I thought were really bad and lost control of it. It was 45 minutes before they asked Doug a question.
Mm-hmm.
He had to break in. He had to break in twice. I thought his first response was really, really good because these people don't get what this auto strike is all about. These people look at things different. Doug looks at things different because he is a businessman and an entrepreneur, and he understands these things, and that's what these other people on stage didn't get.
Yeah.
They don't get it, and half of those guys shouldn't even be up there anyway because they're just against Trump and
Who would you vote off the island? Let's ask you the vote off the island question. Who shouldn't have been up there?
Well, I would vote Vivek off. I think he's right. He's saying a lot of the right things, but here's the problem. If he did not vote in the 2016 election, if he didn't have enough conviction and care enough about our country to vote in 2016, we can't trust him because that was a binary decision. That was about as big a decision as we've had other than the last one here for saving our country. And if he couldn't vote, and if he couldn't make that decision then, that's a problem for me.
That's a great point.
It is a great point. It's fair criticism on Vivek, too. It is. And Mike Pence got that in tonight.
Vivek has a very bright future. He's remarkably intelligent. He's a self-made guy, a business guy worth $500 million. He's got a bright future here, but he's 36 years old. Guys, he hasn't had to coach a kid through his first, a girl dumped me in junior high yet. His kids are little. He just hasn't had enough life. Does anybody really think that he's electable at the age of 36, that he's had enough life experience to lead our country?
If he didn't care enough in 2016 to vote, then, you've got to love our country. If you didn't love it enough in 2016 to vote, that's a big red flag for me.
But I'll tell you what.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it.
What did we think of Nikki Haley saying to Vivek Ramaswamy? Honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber.
I feel dumber.
I don't know I don't feel dumber listening to Vivek. I think the guy's got a lot going for him, and it does a pretty good job. I'm just a little taken back by the kind of too much polish, and I agree with what this caller's saying. If you don't vote in the 2016 election, how invested are you in the future of America? It's very bizarre.
I thought he had one of the lines of the night, though, talking about fentanyl. He was talking about the drugs coming up through the southern border, and he said, that's not drug trafficking, that's bioterrorism.
Yeah. That was a good line.
Boom.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that makes you go, whoa. And when he talks about the transgender stuff, he comes right out and says it. And I wrote in my notes, he doesn't give an F if you like what he says or not. He's going to go out and say it. And he's so smooth and so articulate. He's got a really bright future. There's a lot to like about him, but I don't know that we know who he really is.
Yeah, he just came out of nowhere, basically.
Too fast.
Yeah. And it's funny, like you and I earlier today, Steve, were talking before Scott got into the conversation, and that came up, his age. We talk about, look how old Biden is. Look how old these members of Congress are. Look at the age of Trump, and people are concerned. These folks are getting up there. that we need to get somebody younger. But then you got somebody like a Vivek, and then there's an age concern there because is he too young?
He's just a little too young. Yeah. Well, what's DeSantis? He's not that old, is he? He's
DeSantis,
like 45 or
yeah,
something?
40s. Yeah, 40s, yeah.
So, I mean,
but he's got the experience. Governor doing very well in Florida, in the military, and I like his response saying, look, I'm Commander-in-Chief. I know how to handle it or how to deal with these,
he was
how to
solid
handle the troops.
He got in a lot of key points tonight.
It took a while, but he got there.
Yeah.
But I just, I've always been a fan of DeSantis. I really have. But I just don't think he's going to go much farther than where he's at now. I just don't see it.
It pains me to hear you say that, but I know what you're saying. You just look at him on the stage, and he kind of looks weird, and he's kind of got this goofy look on his face. He just
he just got Botox or something.
It's just he doesn't have that it factor on a stage.
You don't get the warm fuzzies from him.
You
that's
don't.
For sure.
But then you watch him on with Hannity one-on-one after the debate is over, and he looks very different in a one-on-one setting. And guys, I hate the debate piece because it's about how good you are on the stage and the zingers and the one-liners rather than what did you get done in the last job you had. And he's got that list of accomplishments.
Here's where DeSantis may end up getting a big boost. I mean, it's finalized. It is done. And he's going to be debating Newsom. That's a done deal. It'll be on Sean Hannity's show, 90-minute debate between those two. That could really be huge.
By the way, it's not happening until the end of November.
Though. I know, but still, that could be a big bump for this guy.
Yeah, no, it'd be good. And that'd be a good toe-to-toe. Red state governor, blue state governor. It's going to be good.
Yeah, it is.
Sure.
701-271-1100. You are listening to the post-debate show on AM 1100, The Flag. Steve Hallstrom, Scott Hennen, myself, Jay Thomas, and again, we'll go, about another 15 minutes, guys?
Yeah.
Hello, guys. I know it's been a long day. Hello.
I'll keep the conversation going on DeSantis a little bit.
Okay.
He was an eyelash away, I think, from having a night where I would say, bleep, was he good tonight. He started off really slow. It took forever for him to be heard from.
And he's center stage.
He was, and he waited forever. Burgum's jumping in from the flank, and Pence is jumping in, and DeSantis just kind of sitting there. And then when he finally got a question, it wasn't an answer made you go, okay, he's here. So he started out so slow, but he got better and better as the night went on. If you remember right, He was the one that took charge of that whole situation about write the name down on the card. And finally, he was the one that said, we're not going to do that here. And then they asked him a question, and I don't even remember what the question was about, but he handled it really well. And I just thought he got better and better as the night went on. But he's got to understand, he's 40 points behind Trump, 35, whatever it is. He doesn't have the luxury of starting slow anymore.
No.
Like when these things come up, he's got to be really good from the start. And I thought for the most part, he could have really helped himself tonight, and I didn't. Whereas I thought Nikki Haley from the very beginning was ready to go, and she continues to just build a little bit more at a time. But I think Doug Burgum, if you say, who helped their cause the most as far as percentage point, Doug Burgum really helped himself out, and he's going to keep moving it slower and slower.
With 8 minutes out of 2 hours.
It will be interesting to see what this does to Governor Burgum's poll numbers.
Yeah.
It really will. Because,
really
again, you're right, Scott. He got 8 minutes. He got less time than the first one, but he got a lot more accomplished in this one.
We have a few highlights from the debate. We'll kind of play a few of these and give some commentary on the night. Go ahead and roll a couple of.
All night long, we've been talking about issues, about how it's broken in Washington, and I respect all of the people on the stage here for their 100-plus years of public service. Thank you.
That's pretty
good. But the
good.
reason why we're not talking about education or health care or safety being a problem in North Dakota is because we have a business leader. I've got more experience as a business leader than I think this whole group combined. I know I've created more jobs than everybody else on stage, thousands of high-paying jobs that have real meaning. So as a business leader, you come in and you treat the taxpayer like a customer. So in North Dakota, instead of fighting with the teachers' unions, we actually created a K-12 coordinating council. Everybody gets in the room, and the customer is the student.
But you do understand that this is an issue that many people
And
in
what's
America
with that? Dana
really
Perino's
are
interrupting
concerned
him.
about, worried about parents and notification in schools.
Yes, and that's why we have 50 platforms of innovation. That's why we have states. There are certain things the federal government is supposed to do. It's not the Department of Education. That needs to be assembled. We got to move it back to states. Do what we did in North Dakota. Instead of like, oh, here's a choice school and here's an old school, the old way with the teachers union, the kids are trapped. We made every school in North Dakota an innovation school. Every school got out from under the red tape, and the things that help teach the values that we're trying to get, like 4-H, like FFA, like Boy Scouts, they can get credit for all of it.
Oh, she is really snarky towards him.
Really?
Well,
isn't she?
It's like she would you call up Megyn Kelly to get advice on how to run a debate? I mean, what are you doing here, Dana?
Yeah, he got under her skin, obviously, because she was not happy with him early on being aggressive on that. What did you think of Burgum's answer there?
That was fantastic. I thought when Burgum got the opportunity, or when he took the opportunity or saw the opportunity, I think Doug came out. I think he came out swinging.
You know, and
landed punches.
The only wish I had for Doug is he's so smart, his brain works so fast, but he's rushing his answers. Mm-hmm. If he could just slow that down a little bit and just seem a little bit more composed as he's giving the answer, I think that makes you seem presidential. Whereas when you talk a mile a minute, it seems like there's this nervous energy, but you seem a little more stately when you can just slow it down a little bit, still seem like you're making points with emphasis, but you're not rushing it, you're not trying to auction it out.
You know why he's doing that? He's doing it. He's going, oh my God, I actually got a chance to get in here. I got to get in as much as I can say.
The pressure cooker is incredible. The person I thought did really well with that piece of advice you've given, Steve, is Tim Scott. Tim Scott does a nice job of his pace.
Just mellow and just...
Yep, and making some solid points. Now, Mike Pence tries it, but he puts you to sleep.
100% right.
Yeah,
100%. It's just... It just seems like he's settling in for a really long story he's going to tell you. And, well, here's what you need to know. And it just feels a little patronizing to me.
Mike Pence is an incredible human being. I've had the pleasure of knowing him. He was a radio talk show host before he was governor, and after he was a member of Congress for 12 years. And, he's a gem of a guy. There's a real rock solid, great-grandfatherly type guy there, but he just is not what America needs right now.
Before we go to Joe in Tennessee, email, I love this. Hey, guys, remember DeSantis was the legal advisor for Navy SEALs, a bunch of alpha males who didn't listen to pencil neck geeks, yet he served them well. He operates well under pressure and is able to get the essential issue triggers that need to be pulled. He's the sort of calm, cool, collected operator we need as president. Let's go down to beautiful Tennessee, and Joe, you're up. Hey, Joe.
Hey. First off, I think DeSantis probably, and by rights, shouldn't have even jumped into the presidency thing. I think he should have just did his thing for the Florida people for the 4 years. Mm-hmm. They're all talking about having 8 to 12 years. Trump come in and do his 4 years, get the plate rolling. Then DeSantis come in, he would probably be a 2-term president.
Yep.
I would give him 12 years.
You say that, Joe. It's the wife and I go down to Florida, and we love Florida, and we're DeSantis fans as governor. And it's people down there love him. And when we were down there, a lot of people were upset, saying, "Look, finish being the governor. Don't do this to us."
Exactly right. Exactly. I like DeSantis. He's really good. He's great. And I just think if they really wanted to get the Republican Party back on track, if he would have just done that, and I mean, you think about it, the people down there. I've talked to some people in Florida, and they're just like, they're kind of upset about him doing what he did to Trump, basically.
You know what though? I would not discount DeSantis being a running mate with Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump is able to forgive and forget many times over. He's proven that before. So I think, and by the way, talk about 12 years. Don't talk about 1 term, 4 years. Talk about what you're going to do in the Trump, second term with a vice president that's right behind with an agenda for the next 12 years. That's how you take on $33 trillion in debt. So I wouldn't count him out yet. I know there's some bad blood between the camps. Mostly, you got to put at Trump's feet because Trump's been the one that's been vicious towards DeSantis. I mean, just absolutely vicious.
Well, you have to remember, too, that DeSantis got into this thing several months ago when the numbers for Trump were very different than they are now. At this point, Trump is a juggernaut, but he wasn't back then.
That's
and so
a good
you
point.
Thought, hey, maybe Trump is unelectable. Maybe he can't get it done anymore. Maybe his luster has worn off. Now, maybe that was a bad tea leaf read. but at the time, it probably didn't seem as crazy as it does right now.
No, you make a good point. You're right. The numbers were not up there. And, hey, this is the opportunity. Hey, Joe, I'm glad you're listening in beautiful Tennessee. Before we let you go, and we're asking everybody who's calling from other states, what did you think of our governor, Doug Burgum? Honest thoughts on him.
Honestly, I really like the guy. I think he's very, very good. And I'll be honest with you, just in case if it was to go where Trump is, he becomes nominated for the presidency, I think I would look for him. If something happens where Bergman was. Anyways, I think I look for him to pull him in as vice president.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Joe, glad you're listening in Tennessee. Be safe, brother. Appreciate the phone call. It's 10:53. Gavin Newsom is on with Hannity. What is going on?
What are we doing here?
Can we tap into that,
guys?
Tap
into
California.
it.
But
you're
disagree.
A sanctuary state.
And it's
you
the fifth
want
largest
illegal
economy
immigration.
in the world. We had 7.8% GDP growth in 2021.
Tell me this guy ain't running for
president.
president.
We dominate on innovation and entrepreneurial
And who
spirit.
pays for housing, food, clothing, education, health care? Who pays for that?
We had $177.7 billion operating surplus over 2 fiscal years, and I just did an $18.5 billion tax rebate, the largest in American history, as we expanded universal health care, and we're providing more services, including, by the way, health insurance, which Ron DeSantis apparently wasn't even aware of the question.
You save that for the debate with Ron. Here's the next thing. So I come into your state.
Yes, sir.
First thing I love to do is bring money to your economy.
I appreciate it.
I go straight to In-N-Out Burger. That is one of the greatest things of your state,
Yeah.
including the weather, including the terrain is phenomenal.
You can keep going, but yes.
It's all phenomenal. However, then I'm passing gas station after gas station and gas station.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're right.
Excuse me.
Gouging us. Oil companies are screwing us.
$4 a gallon in every other state.
Yeah.
$7 I saw here. Why is your state nearly twice as much?
As of today, I monitor this very closely. I just did a special session. We became the first state in the country to do price gouging legislation with a new monitor. Just went into effect. These oil companies are ripping us off. $2.
They're only ripping off California, though?
$2.06. This mystery surcharge that they've been advancing for years and years.
But the average around the country is $4, and I saw anywhere between $6.50 and $7.
$2.06 higher. You're absolutely right.
So your state is much more than every other state.
Exactly. $2
Why?
higher. Because they're screwing us.
No, it's because all your regulations.
No other state has to pay for their
85
gas, just you guys.
85 cents, low carbon fuel standard.
How much does California get per gallon for gasoline tax?
When you add the gas tax, you add cap and trade, and you add the low carbon fuel standards, and then periodically add, and I'm being as transparent as I can be, and you add our unique blend, you get a differential around 85 cents.
Your unique blend.
Not $2.06. That's where the oil companies.
All right, I cannot do any more of Damien's father. That guy reminds me from the Omen. I'm serious. I'm going to tell you honestly. Don't tell me that this guy ain't running for president.
He's the guy.
He's running. Biden will be out.
Yes.
He's the guy. And this guy scares the living hell out of me. Because this guy he's got the looks. He is slick and he is smooth. He's got an answer for everything.
Exactly right.
He's 10 times better than Obama was. And,
Yes.
And Obama gave everybody a tingle down the leg without any regard for the fact he'd never run or done anything. This guy is a formidable candidate. There's no doubt about it.
I'm telling you, that's why it is going to be interesting to see DeSantis go against this guy. It really is. This is a scary dude, you guys. I'm telling you. Gavin Newsom scares the living daylights out of me.
You can't F up a state worse than what he's done in California, and yet when you listen to him tell the story, it's a success.
Oh, yeah, great economy. Things are booming.
And, people don't, a lot of voters go out, they don't follow this stuff close enough. They just like Obama, he's the first black president. They didn't see, they didn't look into his background and see what he really... Same thing with this guy. They're going to go, look at this slick, good-looking young guy. Look what he did. This is scary stuff. Imagine this guy for 4 to 8 years. You think the country's bad now?
But let me ask you a question. What is he doing on Fox News Channel after the Republican debate with Sean Hannity?
100% right.
Give me a break, Fox News. To interview Doug Burgum.
Don't even Fox News it. All of a sudden, Hannity loves this guy.
Why does the RNC allow him in the building?
I know. I don't know. That's above my pay grade,
would
guys.
CNN have Kristi Noem on the
of course
Democrat
not.
debate?
Oh, are you kidding me? Come on. I don't know what's going on here. Now, we knew that Newsom was going to be here. We knew that he was going to be at this debate. It was all over the news. But I don't understand why. The only thing I can think of is that Hannity's got him on to try to play gotcha and hit him for all the garbage going on in California and thinking, okay, we know that some of the left is watching this debate, but this is going to backfire.
He eats Hannity's lunch.
Exactly.
It isn't his state. Maybe he just, by being the governor of the state that it's in, he can just be there. I don't know.
And you know what, though? That's a good, you're
maybe.
Could be.
But you still don't have to put him on TV.
No.
It's probably just still a ratings thing.
Well, what a bummer. You know, I was jacked up about tonight. I was fired up to see how this was going to go, and I really come away from it very disappointed.
Let me ask you the question that I kind of said, maybe halfway through this thing. Did anybody do themselves enough to make you feel like they really took a bite out of Trump tonight?
No. The candidates helped themselves amongst each other. Some of them did, but to take a bite out of Trump, no, didn't happen tonight.
I want to take a moment to thank all the people that joined us for the watch party and have been watching online from all across the country, which has been really great. Thank you, North Dakota Petroleum Foundation, for making that happen. And the group that was here was really fun to hear from them. We care about them, all our callers, our listeners. That part's been great. It's great to have a kind of a robust conversation with lots of different views tonight. So thanks for everybody for listening, watching, and joining us at the watch party on both KTGO and AM 1100 The Flag.
One quick thank you again to our sponsors, North Dakota Petroleum Foundation, Casey Joe's Catering, and Americans for Prosperity.
All right, had a blast, guys. All right, back to normal programming.
Community-focused, conservative-minded. This is AM 1100 and 92.3 FM. WZFG, Dilworth, Fargo, Moorhead,